The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.
We're not making it. We need your help. This is the last day of this week of the fund drive. I hope we don't have to come back next week. We may have to if we don't hit our goals for the week on this day. So please call now, 877-378-8669. This network depends on you. And I keep saying this over and over and over again, but it's so true. Free Speech TV is this extraordinary jewel in the muck of the media landscape of capitalist America. I don't know how to say it beyond that. It's a really important thing, and it's here because you have been here supporting Free Speech TV. And for that, I'm very grateful. And I know all the people at Free Speech TV are really grateful. But we need to keep this thing going. And yeah, it's the summer. Gifts, donations are always down in the summer. And it's been a pretty crazy political year. We've got, the orange Cittadini running the country and et cetera. But we still have to do the basic business of paying the connection fee bills and paying the electric bills and making payroll and just the stuff, just the normal stuff. There's no CEOs getting 6, 7, 8-figure salaries here. There's no stockholders taking dividends so that they can enjoy a top tax rate of 23.8% instead of the 39% that everybody else has to pay. There's no billionaire oligarchs like Rupert Murdoch, behind the network or demanding fealty or, whatever. There's no big corporate overlord like Comcast or Time Warner saying, you may not speak about net neutrality. You may not speak about the merger of Time Warner and AT&T. You may not do a show about the Sherman Antitrust Act. There's none of that, right? And I know people in other networks, they live with that. And I thank God I don't have to. I mean, this Free Speech TV for me is liberating. I can speak about anything. And I do, as you well know. And, the same is true of all the other talent on this network. And we all do it in our own way. I mean, Amy is thoughtful and serious, and Stephanie is irreverent and funny, and I'm whatever I am, and all the other great programming, but I don't think any of it, frankly, could exist on commercial television, because the things that I say, the things that Amy Goodman says, the things that are things that reveal corporate malfeasance, that reveal the perfidy of the conservative billionaire class, particularly the petro-billionaires who are willing to lie to us in order to make more money, destroying our planet. I mean, isn't that incredible? You've got this whole Koch network. They raised $900 million, almost $1 billion for the last election, and maybe even more. I mean, nobody knows. So much of this money is invisible. They fund great report in Politico about a year and a half ago about how these guys, they throw a few $1,000,000 a year, $5 or $6 million a year at Limbaugh, $3 or $4 million a year at Hannity. I mean, it's insane the amount of money that's floating around in the right-wing sphere. And I mean, it's insane how just that this is the media landscape in the United States, but it's the reality. So with a $60 donation, Free Speech TV, water bottle, and pocket constitution, with a $120 contribution, What Would Jefferson Do book, and a free speech water bottle and a pocket constitution, with a $240 gift, Rebooting the American Dream, the book What Would Jefferson Do, the water bottle, and the constitution, with a $360 donation, which could be $30 a month for a year, the Legacy of Secrecy book, Rebooting the American Dream book, the Free Speech TV water bottle, and the pocket constitution. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Washington, D.C., and I'll take you to lunch. That said, I mean, you know about those premiums. That said, we really need to hit these goals, and we need to do it. Please help us do it today, because if we can't, Monday, instead of running a brand new book report, we'll be here pitching for money again. And it's not that I don't like doing that. I mean, it's the most fun thing in the world, but I don't mind doing my part for Free Speech TV, putting in this effort. I hope you can do yours. Please call now, 877-378-8669. This network is something worth keeping. It's something worth, I mean, at this point, what we're talking about is keeping it. It's worth building and strengthening too. Thanks so much. Call us now, 877-378-8669.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you. Boy, this amazing study that just came out from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. That's CB, as in Center on Budget, pp.org, as in policypriorities.org. And this is mind-boggling. The headline, the subhead actually, tax cuts for 400 highest income households. Okay, in other words, just the tax cuts in this piece of legislation that the Republicans proposed in the Senate yesterday, just those tax cuts exceed the cost of maintaining expansion in most states, just on the 400 richest families in America. It's $33 billion. The 400 highest income taxpayers alone would receive tax cuts worth about $33 billion from 2019 through 2028, which is more than the federal spending cuts from ending the Medicaid expansion in any one of the 20 expansion states in the District of Columbia. In fact, the tax cuts for the top 400 families, billionaire families. The tax cuts for the top 400 roughly equal the federal cost of maintaining the expansion in Nevada, West Virginia, Arkansas, and Alaska combined. Policymakers face a stark choice: maintain the Medicaid expansion coverage for 726,000 people in these 4 states, or move forward with the Republicans' legislation and cut taxes by millions of dollars a year for 400 households whose annual incomes average more than $300 million each. So these are families that have an income of roughly $1 million a day. And their taxes, if they're on capital gains, their taxes went up 3.8%. And this is just mind-boggling. Households with incomes above $1 million a year would get annual tax cuts averaging more than $50,000 apiece. And, in the fundamental structure, House passed bill cuts taxes for the wealthy and corporations and pays for it by cutting provisions that help millions of people afford health coverage and care. It is just that simple. It boils down to it. On this day in history, by the way, today Harry Truman vetoed the Taft-Hartley Act in 1947. The following week said the House and Senate overrode his veto. In 1972, U.S. President Nixon and White House Chief of Staff H.R. Haldeman discussed a plan to use the CIA to obstruct the FBI's Watergate investigation. Gee, why does that sound familiar? You know, what does that sound like? Like there's an echo of that, right? And 4 of 9 in our chat room says, I was first at the McDonald's this morning, tuned their TV to Free Speech TV. Good on you. Good on you. Thank you. Okay, there's just check out this website, TrumpCareToolkit.org. Igor Volsky is involved with this. We're trying to get him on the show today. And a simple guide to the GOP healthcare bills. There's two that I particularly like. One is over at Huffington Post. The other is at the BBC. And they basically compare the current law, the Affordable Care Act, to the Republican bills in the House and Senate. And with regard to the individual mandate, of course, that's required in Obamacare. It is done away with in the Senate bill. The employer mandate, large employers face penalties if they don't offer employees health insurance. That's the current bill. Both House and Senate bills eliminate the employer mandate. So if you work and you get health insurance for your job because your employer is required to do so, this would be a company, I believe, that has more than 50 employees. You know, you may lose your health insurance. Tax credits. Tax credits for people buying insurance vary based on age, income, and the cost of insurance in the area. That's the current program. But yesterday's Senate legislation, tax credits would vary by income at a lower eligibility rate than under the ACA. The credits are smaller because their value is tied to the cost of less generous insurance than under the ACA. In other words, we're getting subprime insurance here is what's going on. Age-based pricing. Under the Affordable Care Act, they can charge older people 3 times what younger people pay. Under the new Republican Act, they can charge, your insurance can cost 5 times what if you're 60, your insurance can cost 5 times what a 20-year-old would pay. Pre-existing conditions, you can't be denied based on pre-existing conditions. In the House, they let the insurers opt out of the whole pre-existing condition thing. Under the Senate bill, insurers cannot deny coverage due to pre-existing conditions. Nate, that might be Igor trying to call in if it's 11 or 12. Insurers cannot deny coverage due to pre-existing conditions or charge higher rates based on patients' health or medical histories. Medicaid, states can choose to expand Medicaid eligibility to include healthy adults. That's the current thing. Both the House and the Senate bills end the Medicaid expansion. And in fact, the Senate bill cuts Medicaid over time. Essential health benefits. There's a set of 10 basic benefits that are part of Obamacare, and basically, this is a summary of them. If you're going to offer a health insurance plan, now some states like Iowa took a waiver and said we're going to allow health insurance companies to sell crappy plans, cheap plans in our state, which moved all the young, healthy people into those plans. So all the older, sicker people ended up on the Obamacare exchange, which is why the Obamacare exchange collapsed in Iowa. These are decisions that, by and large, Republican state governors make, or state legislators, arguably Republican governors have made. And it's why, they're sabotaging Obamacare, very simply. And here are the 10 things. Ambulatory patient service, basically outpatient care. In other words, you can get services without being admitted to a hospital, number 1. Number 2, emergency services. Number 3, hospitalization, surgery, and overnight stays. Your health insurance plan must cover hospitalization. Maternity care, including pregnancy and newborn care. Mental health and substance abuse. Prescription drugs. Your insurance must cover prescription drugs. Rehabilitative and habilitative services and devices. In other words, for people with injuries, if you get in a car accident, something like that, it covers all that. Laboratory services, preventive and wellness services, chronic disease management, and pediatric services, including oral and vision care. Adult dental and vision are not included. This is Obamacare. All 10 of these things have to be in every insurance policy sold, for example, in the state of California, because they didn't take a waiver. And that's why Obamacare is doing just fine in California. Thank you very much. In fact, it's doing, spectacularly. But in Iowa, they said you don't have to do these 10 things. You can sell insurance policies that only do 3 of them, or 2 of them, or 5 of them, or whatever you want. And you can charge a lot less for those policies. Of course, if somebody gets sick, they're screwed. But anyhow, that's the essential health benefits. That's blown away. States can say, no, don't want to do it. Federal funds, federal funds cannot pay for abortion. But the organization, this is Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is eligible for Medicaid payments and federal grants. In other words, if you go to Planned Parenthood for a pap test, pap smear, or for a breast exam or something like that, Medicaid, and you're on Medicaid, Medicaid can, just like they pay your doctor or they would pay a hospital, they can pay Planned Parenthood. Under both the Republican House and Senate bill, you can go to anybody you want except Planned Parenthood if you're on Medicaid. You are forbidden from going to Medicaid, or at least Medicaid won't pay for it if you go to Planned Parenthood. This is a way of trying to put Planned Parenthood out of business. It's just very simple. And taxes, Obamacare raised taxes on rich people to pay for the expansion of benefits, and the Republican plans in both the House and Senate cut those taxes for wealthy people. So that, I think this is a huge story. It's a major big deal. But there's a lot of other stuff going on in the world, too. The D.C. cops used rape as punishment after Inauguration Day mass arrests. Lawsuit says this by Alan Pike over at the Center for American Progress's blog, Think Progress. And they talk about how the police arrested several hundred people. There was about a half a dozen or a dozen people who were breaking windows here in D.C. In fact, it was a block and a half from where we are right now. We watched the police chase them down the street through our windows. And but there were several hundred people who were in the area, and they all got kettled together. They are all facing major felonies, 25-year felonies, for simply being on the street during a protest. And then, but the experiences of the lawsuits for plaintiffs, independent photojournalist Shay Horse, volunteer legal observer Judah Ariel, peaceful protesters Elizabeth Laguesse and Milo Gonzalez. An officer ordered Horse, fellow plaintiff Gonzalez, and 3 others to take their pants off before grabbing their testicles and then inserting a finger into their anuses while other officers laughed, the complaint alleges. Horse is a photojournalist, one of the 6 reporters initially arrested and charged with cases that have been dismissed. He said it felt like they were using molestation and rape as punishment. They used these tactics to inflict pain and misery on people who were supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. It felt like they were trying to break me and the others, break us so that even if the charges didn't stick, that night would be our punishment. Jeez. I mean, we have a culture of policing in this country that is unlike anything you'll find in Europe, at least since the 1930s. And it's based in the, arguably, well, not even arguably, I would assert specifically, it was based in the brutality on which this country was founded. The genocide of Native Americans, the kidnapping, rape, torture, and forced labor of African Americans, and the ongoing disenfranchisement of people of color broadly across the United States. And one of the mechanisms of that disenfranchisement, particularly in white, where the white power structure is racist states in the Southeast, one of the major instruments of that white power structure and that disenfranchisement is forbidding felons from voting, which provides the state with a huge incentive to create as many African American felons as possible, which is why you've seen that population explode since Reagan.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Anyhow, back with more of the news of the day. I got to tell you about entangled quantum photons and your calls right after this. And welcome back. Let's see here. Dale, watching Free Speech TV on DirecTV in Harmony, North Carolina. Hey, Dale, what's on your mind today?
Hey, I just wanted to wake the people up to what's really going on out there and animal agriculture world there.
Okay.
That all this distillers grains and gluten and stuff like that would have been wet milled with sulfuric acid. It is causing the same symptoms with the animals that you would have if you was diagnosed with MS. You'd get the same treatment. You'd get B vitamins and steroids. And, even at the foot and mouth beating, some of the last words said, but doctor, don't forget the minerals from China.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Are you a rancher, Dale?
Do what?
Are you a rancher, Dale? Do you raise cattle?
Dairy farmer.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, our cows have been poisoned to the point back there that they was attacking us, and I've actually been severely injured by them there. That's the reason that I'm laying in the bed in severe pain today. The least little thing, it just attacks me to where I can't hardly go with my neck and everything there, and I've had injections and all that kind of stuff in my neck. And look, the Chinese has already scared Smithfield with this and the hog operation. They're more than twice the size of the next biggest competitor.
Wait a second. You said Chinese bought the Smithfield hog operation in North Carolina?
They own it, and that was right after they had the big PED virus outbreak, which high levels of sulfur depresses your immune system,
right,
and you're subject to come down with any kind of virus and everything. Plus, they're having the big lawsuits in eastern North Carolina over the smell and the big swarms of flies. Well, those ponds were never designed or even built to handle this sulfide gas and stuff that comes off of that after it gets in it. There's been farmers killed with this sulfide gas around the hog operation, dairy operation, both. It's been reported. And the government, we've repeatedly asked for educational deals. And even in one case where two doctors were talking and my brother overheard them, and one was asking for help for his buddy. He said, look, he's done lost over $1 million in milk sales here, and it ain't been no time. And that research doctor just looked at him and said, well, look, he had a nutritionist formulating his ration, and they know they were buying cheap feed, and he got damaged.
So let me get this right, Dale. Cheap Chinese feed for your dairy cattle have poisoned them to the point where they're acting bizarre, and one of them attacked you?
Oh, yeah. It burns their brain just like it does with drug addicts. The sulfuric acid burnt drug addicts there.
Wow.
It burns their brains, and they never come back. Once you get that brain damage, they stay that way until they die. You can get treatment.
So are you going to, like, go organic or something, get off the Chinese feed?
Well, this is not Chinese feed. This is American feed. But now it's hard telling what company owns it, though, but where they're making the ethanol, they use sulfuric acid to break the starches down,
right,
to wet mill the grains with. And that is a highly dangerous process, and they have hot spots in it there. They can't control the hot spots of sulfur.
And that's getting into your animals. Dale, I got to run, but thanks for the illuminating commentary and your personal experience. I'm going to have to learn more about this. I appreciate the call. Dale, thank you very much, and thanks for watching Free Speech TV. We'll be right back.
Hi there, I'm Marie with Free Speech TV. Your support, whether through giving donations, volunteering, or spreading the word about Free Speech TV, has made it possible for the only independent progressive news network to exist. And for that, I want to say thank you. Now you can give to the network powered by the people by donating an unwanted or used vehicle through our Vehicles of Change program. If you have an old car, RV, or even a motorcycle, Free Speech TV can use it to grow and thrive. You can make a bigger difference in supporting Free Speech TV by giving an old car. It's a great way to support the network without having to dig into your bank account. Just call 877-378-8669 and ask for more information about Vehicles of Change. Again, the number to call is 877-378-8669. If it has a VIN, we'll take it in. Thank you.
Oh, let's see what's going on in the world today. Here, William or what you're thinking about it. William in, how do you pronounce that town in Louisiana there, William?
Oh, it's Marin, Tom.
Maringon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Close enough.
So what's up, William?
I'm just saying that I don't think any of our sad stories are going to.
Hey, William, I can't understand what you're saying because you're William.
Millions of
Hey,
dollars.
William.
Take away health care for
William.
the poor.
William.
My sad story. Anybody
Okay.
else?
William, I'm going to put you on hold. I think that you're William. You must be calling in. Either you're calling in using a voice over internet protocol phone, a VoIP phone, and it's just badly distorted, or you had me on speakerphone, but you couldn't hear me when I was talking to you. Nate, he's on line 5. Can you get that cleared up, and let's get William on so we can hear him. Carol in Monessen, Pennsylvania. Hey, Carol, what's on your mind today?
Tom, thanks for taking my call. I wish that the news media would come out and explain how we in this country are at the mercy of health insurance companies, and other countries don't have this problem.
Right.
I was talking to a Canadian on the internet last night, and he was telling me, he said, all I need to go to the doctor is a little card, and I can go to the doctor of my choice.
That's right.
Now, how did these banksters manage to pull this off for so many years? That's my question.
Well, the United States is uniquely insular. We are, on the eastern seaboard we've got the Atlantic Ocean. On the western seaboard we've got the Pacific Ocean. We're only bordered by Canada and Mexico. We don't pay much attention to what happens in Canada or in Mexico, frankly. They both have national health care systems. And so, this is the whole, American exceptionalism. Well, what it really means is America just doesn't pay attention to the rest of the world. And so the American media doesn't talk about what's going on in Europe, because the average American has no interest in it, frankly. It's, we're just like geographically designed for xenophobia, I guess. And I think that's probably why nobody knows about this. I mean, you combine that with the right-wing biases of corporate media. Many of these large corporations that own the media have interlocking boards of directors with health insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies. You can find that information over at theyrule.net. You can actually see the interconnections between all these companies. So, I think it's a combination of those two things, Carol. Does that make sense?
Do you think that there's a chance ever that we will be able to remove them from between us and our doctors and hospitals? Is there a chance?
I think there's a very good chance. I really do. I think that all of this is coming to a head. The health insurance companies are going to fight like crazy. I mean, we talked yesterday about how they gave $400,000 to Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
They are going to fight like crazy, and all the 13, white men who were on that, who put together so-called Trump care. But I really think they're the buggy whip. It's like coal. Trying to hang on to coal. The buggy whip industry's gasping their last gasps. Carol, thanks for the call. I'm actually very optimistic about this, and I think this whole dialogue is part of that. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's Anything Goes Friday in Anything Goes Summer, and it's 28 minutes past the hour. We're not making it. We need your help. This is the last day of this week of the fund drive. I hope we don't have to come back next week. We may have to if we don't hit our goals for the week on this day. So please call now, 877-378-8669. This network depends on you. And I keep saying this over and over and over again, but it's so true. Free Speech TV is this extraordinary jewel in the muck of the media landscape of capitalist America. I don't know how to say it beyond that. It's a really important thing. And
And it's here because you have been here supporting Free Speech TV. And for that, I'm very grateful. And I know all the people at Free Speech TV are really grateful. But we need to keep this thing going. And yeah, it's the summer. Gifts, donations are always down in the summer. And it's been a pretty crazy political year. We've got, the orange Cittadini running the country and et cetera. But we still have to do the basic business of paying the connection fee bills and paying the electric bills and making payroll and just the stuff, just the normal stuff. There's no CEOs getting 6, 7, 8-figure salaries here. There's no stockholders taking dividends so that they can enjoy a top tax rate of 23.8% instead of the 39% that everybody else has to pay. There's no billionaire oligarchs like Rupert Murdoch, behind the network or demanding fealty or whatever. There's no big corporate overlord like Comcast or Time Warner saying, you may not speak about net neutrality. You may not speak about the merger of Time Warner and AT&T. You may not do a show about the Sherman Antitrust Act. There's none of that, right? And I know people in other networks, they live with that. And I thank God I don't have to. I mean, this Free Speech TV for me is liberating. I can speak about anything. And I do, as you well know. And, the same is true of all the other talent on this network. And we all do it in our own way. I mean, Amy is thoughtful and serious, and Stephanie is irreverent and funny, and I'm whatever I am, and all the other great programming. But I don't think any of it, frankly, could exist on commercial television. Because the things that I say, the things that Amy Goodman says, the things that, are things that reveal corporate malfeasance, that reveal the perfidy of the conservative billionaire class, particularly the petro-billionaires who are willing to lie to us in order to make more money, destroying our planet. I mean, isn't that incredible? You've got this whole Koch network. They raised $900 million, almost $1 billion for the last election, and maybe even more. I mean, nobody knows. So much of this money is invisible. They fund the great report in Politico about a year and a half ago about how these guys, they throw a few $1 million a year, $5 or $6 million a year at Limbaugh, $3 or $4 million a year at Hannity. I mean, it's insane the amount of money that's floating around in the right-wing sphere. And I mean, it's insane how just that this is the media landscape in the United States, but it's the reality. So with a $60 donation, Free Speech TV, water bottle, and pocket constitution, with a $120 contribution, What Would Jefferson Do book, and a free speech water bottle and a pocket constitution, with a $240 gift, Rebooting the American Dream, the book What Would Jefferson Do, the water bottle, and the Constitution, with a $360 donation, which could be $30 a month for a year, the Legacy of Secrecy book, Rebooting the American Dream book, the Free Speech TV water bottle, and the pocket constitution. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Washington, D.C., and I'll take you to lunch. That said, I mean, you know about those premiums. That said, we really need to hit these goals, and we need to do it. Please help us do it today, because if we can't, Monday, instead of running a brand new book report, we'll be here pitching for money again. And it's not that I don't like doing that. I mean, it's the most fun thing in the world, but I don't mind doing my part for Free Speech TV, putting in this effort. I hope you can do yours. Please call now, 877-378-8669. This network is something worth keeping. It's something worth, I mean, at this point, what we're talking about is keeping it. It's worth building and strengthening too. Thanks so much. Call us now, 877-378-8669.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and I'm really pleased to have in the studio one of the best writers out there. Igor Volsky is the Vice President of the Center for American Progress, Deputy Director of the Center for American Progress Action Fund, and you're doing great work.
Well, thank you, Tom.
You've been on the show before. This is the first time we've been in person.
First time here in the studio, and we're just a couple of blocks down. We're neighbors, we discovered.
Yeah, right here in the K Street corridor, it's near all
between the lobbyists.
Between the lobbyists and the White House. That's
right.
We are holding the fort.
Tom. Yeah.
Anyhow, you've got this incredibly cool new tool that all of you right now need to get on your computer and check this thing out. TrumpCareToolkit.org is the website. Tell us what this is.
So there's about 14 Senate Republicans who are going to decide the fate of this bill. These are either senators who live in states where they've expanded Medicaid, and so taking Medicaid away like this Senate bill does is going to cause a lot of harm to their constituents, or these are senators who are kind of on the fence for one reason or the other. And so what we decided to do, let's just take those 14 senators, put them on the webpage, put all of their phone numbers next to their pictures, and put a tweet option as well with how many people would lose coverage in their states if the Senate bill becomes law. So when people go to the site, TrumpCareToolkit.org, they could easily call with one click, or they can tweet at the senator with one click, reminding them if they vote for this thing, hundreds of thousands of people would lose insurance.
And with specific numbers customized to their states.
This is based on the Congressional Budget Office analysis.
That's great.
Of the House bill and, of course, the Senate bill we're expecting to be
actually
similar.
Worse.
Impossibly worse, I mean, they did some tricks, as you know. They took the Medicaid out of the CBO window, and so we'll see how that works out. But certainly millions would go uninsured, and sick people will have a very hard time finding coverage.
Took the Medicaid out of the CBO window. Tell me about that.
Well, so because they phase it out over a longer period of time, the Congressional Budget Office only looks at 10 years. And so anything that happens outside of that 10 years, they don't include in their official score. They might talk about it in the text, but it's one of the ways you can kind of game the number and try to get a more favorable number. I thought this was a 7-year phase out. It's more than 10 years? Well, the phase out doesn't start. So the phase out in the Senate bill takes longer than the House bill. So in the House bill, you were able to capture the phase. The CBO was able to capture the phase out. Here in the Senate bill, we'll see what they do. And of course, you also know that moving past that, you're going to have serious changes to Medicaid itself and how the relationship works between the federal government and the states, where states are now going to get a certain pot of money that's not going to be tied to increasing medical costs. And so you're going to have a situation where states are going to get less and less money every single year in relation with how healthcare costs grow, which means states are going to have an option to either make up the difference somewhere else within their own budgets, or simply toss more people out of the program. Interesting. We're talking with Igor Volsky, the Vice President of the Center for American Progress. ThinkProgress.org. You all are super familiar with that. I use it. I talk about it almost every day. And Deputy Director of the Center for American Progress Action Fund. You can tweet them at CAP Action, by the way. Yes, please do. CAP, C-A-P, Action. Igor, this is interesting. These 14 senators representing states that expanded Medicaid, or in the case of like Lisa, or what's her name, not Susan Collins, the other senator from Maine. Who's still a senator. Angus King. Oh, no, it was Susan Collins. Yeah, Susan Collins. Okay, Who was the female senator from Maine who retired? Olympia Snowe. Olympia Snowe. Yes. That's what. I'm sorry. Old Olympia Snowe. Yeah, but she's no longer there. In any case, in the case of Susan Collins, very hard in 2009, 2010 to get her on the original. There you go. Bill. There you go. Yeah. Anyhow, so Collins is concerned about, as is Murkowski, about the wiping out the whole services for women through Planned Parenthood. Yes. So for 1 year, this will take away all Medicaid funding for Planned Parenthood. 2.4 million people depend on Planned Parenthood. Right. No longer having access. But there are, I'm not sure if it was on MSNBC or on Fox, because I've got the two of them in the studio here this morning, and we kind of bounce back and forth while we're doing show prep. But one of them did an interview with a congressman. It wasn't a senator, but a congressman from Florida, and said, well, what about, you've got all these elderly people in Florida who are in nursing homes on Medicaid, how can you do this to them?
And he said, we never expanded Medicaid in Florida, so this isn't going to affect us. This isn't going to affect most red states. That's essentially why most Republicans are just fine with this, because we're only penalizing those Republican governors who were stupid enough to expand Medicaid to go along with Obamacare in the first place. Is there an element of, is that true?
Hold up, did they tell him that Rick Scott did expand Medicaid? He did it on a test, he received a special waiver from the Obama administration that allowed him to expand Medicaid for a period of time in a certain way. He did it through private insurers, through managed care, but he did expand Medicaid. Did he say he didn't? That's curious.
This is the congressman.
Curious congressman, curious.
He said we never expanded it.
Well, look, this, you hear a lot from the president, from Republicans, pushing this line of Obamacare is failing or Obamacare is in a real death spiral. The fact of the matter is the governors and the lawmakers who implemented Obamacare as it should be implemented, who laid out all the regulations and kept insurers accountable when they tried to increase premiums, who expanded Medicaid and allowed people to come into the program for the very first time. In those states, Obamacare has been incredibly successful. I'm talking about places like California, for instance. But yes, in states where the local politicians fought it tooth and nail, did nothing when insurers increased premiums, did not expand Medicaid, yeah, they're struggling.
Right, because those states still have 17, 18, 19% unemployed, or excuse me, uninsured rates.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's remarkable. So get over to TrumpCareToolkit.org. You were telling me about an airport.
Oh, yeah. So, we started seeing after the Senate bill dropped yesterday, all of these rumors of people going to the airport, to the Reagan National Airport, not far from here, to basically tell these senators, you can't just drop a bill and then fly away, which is what, of course, they did. Many of them went home. They go home usually Thursday afternoons. And so we saw these rumors. We went down there. And were greeted by folks who had signs. About 60, 70 folks were there chanting, hoping to see senators, saying, don't fly away and take my health care away, basically.
Oh, was this just a spontaneous thing?
Yeah, completely spontaneous, organic thing. And I was walking around and saw Senator Grassley just sitting there reading his phone. And so I went up to him and I said, hey, Senator, my name's Igor Volsky. It's great to meet you. And we shake hands, and I say, I'd love to talk to you about healthcare. And he immediately gets up and gets his bag. And I'm like, I'm just wondering if you've had a chance to read the Senate bill. And he says, it's very long. It's very long. I haven't read it.
And some odd pages, right?
Like 142.
142.
I haven't had a chance to read it. And I'm like, well, how long do you think it's going to take you? And he said, I don't know. I'm a very slow reader. And then we asked him, that's what he told me. We asked him, so do you support people losing coverage? And he literally just makes a beeline for security to get past the security gate where, people with tickets can't go.
Right.
And just literally kind of ran away from us as we were trying to ask him those questions. Wow. But it's indicative. It's indicative of the fact, you were saying this earlier to me, that Republicans aren't excited to talk about this bill. They don't want to discuss the guts of it because it's the least popular piece of legislation in history. I think the latest number was 16% or something that came out today from one of the least popular presidents in history, who's, of course, under FBI investigation. So they have a lot to think about.
So you're working with, one of the premier progressive think tanks and groups here in the country, actually. I mean, you're here in Washington, D.C., but, I've been a long admirer. And how do you see this playing out? Game this out. Where do you think this is going to go?
Well,
what do you think the probabilities of?
I honestly think, and I'm not spinning you guys here, I think it all depends on what we do between now and next Thursday. If we take these next 2 days, this weekend, to show up at our state capitals, at district offices, and kind of raise hell about what's going on and what's in this bill, and then when Monday comes around, if we get on TrumpCareToolkit.org and call these senators nonstop, we can stop this bill. There's no question in my mind. Senators respond to this kind of energy. I mean, we saw it the first time, March 20th, when the House pulled back that health care bill, and you had members of Congress saying, I've heard your calls. I'm not going to support this thing. I'm so sorry. We can do the same thing here. It depends on how much energy we can put together. It literally is in our hands. I mean, the lives of millions of people are literally in our hands. We can organize. We can make this go away because there's no great interest There's no great grassroots energy on their side for this thing. We have the energy. We just
They've
have
got
to
the
harness
billionaire
it.
interest. I mean, you've
They
got,
have
yeah,
the well. That's what this bill is ultimately. Of course,
Yeah,
you take
it's a
healthcare
$600
away from the
tax cut.
poor. Yeah, exactly, and you give tax cuts to the very wealthy. Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So get out there, get active, tag, you're it, right? Any last points you'd like to make, Igor, before we wrap this up?
I mean, I would just say TrumpCareToolkit.org. And if you don't live in these 14 states, go on Facebook and find your friends in West Virginia, in Alaska, in Maine, and ask them to take action. Activate your friends. This
and you
is the
can,
time.
and since it's a URL, it's a simple website, TrumpCareToolkit.org. You can tweet it, you can Facebook it. You
Do it
can
all.
Do it. Yeah. Great. Igor Volsky,
Thank you
thanks
so much,
for
Tom.
being with us.
A pleasure.
Great to
Thanks.
have you in the studio. And Center for American Progress, thinkprogress.org also is a great website, great resource. And you can tweet at them at CAP Action. It's a community, CA, Center for American Progress.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
That's TrumpCareToolkit.org. Tweet at CAP Action. We'll be right back. Thank you. And welcome back, Michael, watching Free Speech TV in Kansas City, Missouri. Hey, Michael, what's on your mind today?
It's Michelle.
Oh, Michelle. I'm sorry.
Yes. I am calling to talk about Senate Bill 5 in Kansas City, Missouri, down in Jeff City right now.
Mm-hmm.
It will allow landlords and employers to discriminate women who use birth control or have had abortions. This is simply not being covered on our local news. And the Senate's, it's already passed the House, and now it's before the Senate. And this is an example to tie into term limits. Term limits have ruined my state. We have no statesmen anymore, or women. All we have are demagogues. They go down there, they know they have 6 years, they got to make a name for themselves so they can get a lobbying job. My state is in disrepair.
This is why conservatives love term limits, by the way,
Yes,
Michelle.
yes. And I have the privilege of working for a Senate Majority Leader, Ryan DePasco, and State Rep Henry Rizzo, and they took their job seriously. We never got a check over $1,000 ever. I never had a lobbyist ever call me when I worked the phones for them. So things are just so lobbyists run our state legislature.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you get term limits is the permanent infrastructure shifts from the people who've been there for a long time to the lobbyists. They become the
staffers. The staffers seem to stay on, but they have their biases.
Yeah.
But please get the word out. If you're in the state of Missouri, call your state senators. SB 5 is discriminating against women. There's no bill out there to discriminate men.
What specifically does this bill do, Michelle?
It says that landlords and employers can, first of all, fire you if the employer finds out you take birth control or had an abortion, and a landlord doesn't have to rent to you or can evict you if they find out you've taken a birth control or abortion.
Wow.
There's no law saying that men who take Cialis or Viagra are going to lose their jobs or get evicted. But please, Missourians, get out there, call your senators.
Right. That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. Michelle, where did this bill originate from? Where?
It originated because the city of St. Louis made a city ordinance saying that landlords and employers could not discriminate against women who've had abortions. Didn't mention birth control. Well, the House of our new governor, Greetens, called after that bill ordinance was passed in St. Louis. Greetens called St. Louis an abortion sanctuary city. Called an emergency session of our legislature because you know how Republicans like saving money. Called an emergency session of legislation to discuss this bill, and they adjusted it, passed it through the House of Reps last couple of days ago, and now it's before the Senate.
That's amazing. What is your governor's name?
Greitens, Greitens, and he's crazy anti-abortion.
What's his first name?
I don't know. I don't really like him, so I don't. Oh, Eric. I'm sorry, Eric.
Eric. Okay, Governor Eric, and presumably a Republican. And we have a Republican legislature now, which I do not understand. We used to be a solid Democratic state. That is back in the day. Yeah, that is amazing. Michelle, is there an easy resource to find if you live in Missouri the name and telephone number of your state representative or your state senator?
Yeah, you can just go to Missouri.gov.
Missouri.gov.
And secretaryofstate.gov will get you there quicker.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Michelle. Appreciate the call.
I appreciate everything you do, Tom.
Thank you. Great talking to you. We'll be right back. Wow, this is amazing. Just to reemphasize Michelle's point, if you live in Missouri, you've got an action step, and if you don't live in Missouri, look out, because this could be coming to a state near you. The city of St. Louis apparently passed some legislation saying that landlords may not discriminate against women who have had abortions. Let me say that again. Landlords may not refuse to rent to you because you're a woman who's had an abortion. Now, this was the proposal. So the governor of the state, Governor Eric Greitens, said, oh, my God, we can't have that. And so he called a special emergency session of the legislature. And what came out of this is Senate Bill 5, which is before the legislature in Missouri right now, which says that it is perfectly legal for landlords to refuse to rent to women who have had abortions or are taking birth control. That's mind-boggling, right? No, men, are you on Cialis or Viagra? Have you had a vasectomy? Nothing like that. No, just the women. Governor Greitens is the second youngest governor in the United States, former Navy SEAL, and apparently a male chauvinist pig. So anyhow, if you live in Missouri, Missouri.gov is the website. If you live there and you want to know the name of your senator and phone number of your state senator or your state representative, it's incredible. Paul in Chicago, listening to WCPT. Hey, Paul, what's up?
Hey, Tom, listen, I love your show. Thank you very much for taking my call. But real quick, I don't know if this has been answered yet, but if it hasn't, it really should be, and they need to do it quick. I'd like to know what the actuaries or the statisticians are saying the result of this bill in the House and or the Senate is going to be, not in terms really of how many people are going to lose coverage, because that's clear, but really how many people are estimated who are going to prematurely die as a result of this.
We know that before Obamacare was put into place, according to a Harvard University study that has held up over the years. I mean, this was 8 or 10 years ago. They were estimating that 45,000 Americans a year died because they lacked health insurance. And largely the precipitating factor for that cause of death was that they had postponed going to the doctor when they had early symptoms that turned out to be deadly diseases, particularly cancer that could have been treatable, cancer and heart disease. We went from, that was before Obamacare.
Medicare.
The last,
there was, Medicaid.
Yeah, Medicaid. All these expansions. The last numbers that I saw, and I'm doing this from memory, Paul, but it's because about half the states never expanded Medicaid. So and some states really made it hard to get on Obamacare. So we still have a substantial underinsured or uninsured population, but it's gone from roughly 17% down to 9%. So we've seen about a 50% drop. So probably that 45,000 dead people a year is now around 22,000. The number that I saw was 15,000. That was last year. Somebody had said that's where we were at. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the citation, but probably 15 to 25,000 right now. So basically what that would mean is if we go back to the old status quo, and this actually takes us back to worse than the old status quo, because these guys are actually cutting Medicaid back to below where it was when Obama expanded it. So we're going to be back to the 45,000, maybe 50, 60,000. So we're probably looking at a minimum of 20,000 people dying every year and probably a maximum of 35,000, just using my back of the envelope math from, the Harvard study.
I'll tell you something. My father is alive today because he gets in-home care from the state of Illinois that would otherwise be paid to a more expensive nursing home for his care he gets a person to come into the house a few days a week to help care for him
Right.
and help cook and everything. And otherwise, he'd be in a very expensive nursing home, bankrupted, every asset sold. And this is people don't understand how devastating this cut and the additional cuts are going to be. And ultimately, at the end of the day, people are going to die, and I'd like to see those numbers, because what the Democrats and everybody of confidence needs to do is they need to take those numbers of how many people they estimate are going to die, and then divide that or multiply it by the dollars of the tax cuts that the 1% are going to get, and then calculate what the price of an American life is worth, because that's what the number is. It's probably dollars.
Okay, so we could do that math right now. We're looking at a $600 billion tax cut. And we're looking at an additional 20,000 people dying every year. Now, that's $600 billion over 10 years. So that's 200,000 people, 20,000 a year for 10 years. So 200,000 goes into 600 billion. Can you do that kind of math in your head? I think that works out to, around $3 million of tax cut for every dead American? But I could be misplacing a decimal point.
A minimum, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's more people who are going to be affected, because this cuts into the meat of Medicaid before the Obamacare, well before this.
Yeah.
So those are the numbers that the Democrats need to be screaming, that, one life to these people.
No,
is
I
worth
agree.
X dollars.
Yeah, this is where Elizabeth Warren yesterday came out and said this is blood money.
Exactly.
And she's absolutely right. I mean, if 200,000 Americans are going to die unnecessarily and prematurely over the next 10 years as a result of these cuts to Medicaid, and I think based on the Harvard study and the numbers that we've seen in the years since then, that's probably a reasonable number. It might even be a conservative number. And that certainly doesn't include all the lives that are saved by Planned Parenthood doing preventative care.
Right.
And this program destroys Planned Parenthood as well. That's millions of women. Then particularly with breast cancer, cervical cancer, uterine cancer, things like that.
Right.
Then
you consider,
go ahead.
Consider all the people that are in nursing homes. 3/4 of the people in nursing homes, because no one can afford a nursing home in the United States.
Right.
No middle class.
It's about 65% of all people in nursing homes are paid for by Medicaid.
Yeah, and what are you going to do with those folks? You're going to either kick them out or restrict their future access, or make it so onerous to get in that future people won't be able to qualify.
Well, maybe the Republicans would like to build some, giant barracks like, the old poorhouses used to be.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're going to die.
Just pack them in 100 to, like an old aircraft hangar, with 100 beds in it, and Nurse Ratchet walking around with a cane whacking people when they make too much noise.
They're going to prematurely die, and the disabled people are going to be forced back into institutions because they're not going to get the home care. They're going to be put right back.
And we saw those disabled people being arrested in front of Mitch McConnell's office yesterday.
And amen for what those people did. I was so proud to see that. We need more people, more brave people like that to do that. Those people had a lot of guts.
I agree. And wasn't that an amazing story that Igor told about the people who just spontaneously showed up at Reagan National Airport here to catch the senators on their way home? It's amazing. Great stuff. Paul, thanks for listening to WCPT. Thanks for the call. Your plea was brilliant and eloquent. Thank you. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com. Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com. Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit tomsbeets.com. We're not making it. We need your help. This is the last day of this week of the fund drive. I hope we don't have to come back next week. We may have to if we don't hit our goals for the week on this day. So please call now, 877-378-8669. This network depends on you. And I keep saying this over and over and over again, but it's so true. Free Speech TV is this extraordinary jewel in the muck of the media landscape of capitalist America. I don't know how to say it beyond that. It's a really important thing. And it's here because you have been here supporting Free Speech TV. And for that, I'm very grateful. And I know all the people at Free Speech TV are really grateful. But we need to keep this thing going. And yeah, it's the summer. Gifts, donations are always down in the summer. And it's been a pretty crazy political year. We've got, the orange Cittadini running the country and et cetera. But we still have to do the basic business of paying the connection fee bills and paying the electric bills and making payroll and just the stuff, just the normal stuff. There's no CEOs getting 6, 7, 8-figure salaries here. There's no stockholders taking dividends so that they can enjoy a top tax rate of 23.8% instead of the 39% that everybody else has to pay. There's no billionaire oligarchs like Rupert Murdoch, behind the network or demanding fealty or, whatever. There's no big corporate overlord like Comcast or Time Warner saying, you may not speak about net neutrality. You may not speak about the merger of Time Warner and AT&T. You may not do a show about the Sherman Antitrust Act. There's none of that, right? And I know people at other networks, they live with that. And I thank God I don't have to. I mean, this Free Speech TV for me is liberating. I can speak about anything. And I do, as you well know. And, the same is true of all the other talent on this network. And we all do it in our own way. I mean, Amy is thoughtful and serious, and Stephanie is irreverent and funny, and I'm whatever I am, and all the other great programming, but I don't think any of it, frankly, could exist on commercial television, because the things that I say, the things that Amy Goodman says, the things that are things that reveal corporate malfeasance, that reveal the perfidy of the conservative billionaire class, particularly the petro-billionaires who are willing to lie to us in order to make more money, destroying our planet. I mean, isn't that incredible? You've got this whole Koch network. They raised $900 million, almost $1 billion for the last election, and maybe even more. I mean, nobody knows. So much of this money is invisible. They fund
great report in Politico about a year and a half ago about how these guys, they throw a few $1 million a year, $5 or $6 million a year at Limbaugh, $3 or $4 million a year at Hannity. I mean, it's insane the amount of money that's floating around in the right-wing sphere. And I mean, it's insane how just that this is the media landscape in the United States, but it's the reality. So with a $60 donation, Free Speech TV, water bottle, and pocket constitution, with a $120 contribution, What Would Jefferson Do book, and a free speech water bottle and a pocket constitution, with a $240 gift, Rebooting the American Dream, the book What Would Jefferson Do, the water bottle, and the constitution, with a $360 donation, which could be $30 a month for a year, the Legacy of Secrecy book, Rebooting the American Dream book, the Free Speech TV water bottle, and the pocket constitution. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Washington, D.C., and I'll take you to lunch. That said, I mean, you know about those premiums. That said, we really need to hit these goals, and we need to do it. Please help us do it today, because if we can't, Monday, instead of running a brand new book report, we'll be here pitching for money again. And it's not that I don't like doing that. I mean, it's the most fun thing in the world, but I don't mind doing my part for Free Speech TV, putting in this effort. I hope you can do yours. Please call now, 877-378-8669. This network is something worth keeping. It's something worth, I mean, at this point, what we're talking about is keeping it. It's worth building and strengthening too. Thanks so much. Call us now, 877-378-8669.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program, broadcasting on commercial radio stations from coast to coast, on Sirius XM all across the North American continent, on Pacifica stations across America, Europe, and Africa, on American Forces Radio and every U.S. military base in the world, on your electronic devices via TuneIn, Progressive Voices, Thom Hartmann app, and simulcast as television by Free Speech TV Network on both Dish Network and DirecTV and cable systems nationwide. On the line with us, Morris Pearl. Morris is the chairman of Patriotic Millionaires. He's a former managing director of BlackRock, Inc. PatrioticMillionaires.org is the website. You can tweet Morris at Morris_Pearl or at Patriotic Mills, M-I-L-L-S. Morris, welcome. I believe you've been on a radio program before. Welcome back.
Great to be on your show, Tom.
Thank you. So tell us, from the point of view of a patriotic millionaire, your thoughts on the Senate and frankly, the House bill, too. I mean, there's not that much difference between the two of them, other than a little smoke and mirrors about how long it takes for them to destroy Medicaid, about these two pieces of legislation that the Republicans are salivating over.
I mean, exactly, Tom. They're both destroying Medicaid, which is, and what they're both trying to accomplish is a huge transfer of wealth from the less well-to-do to the very rich in our country. They're reducing taxes on the people that earn hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and millions of dollars a year, and they're taking the money away from this over 60 million people on Medicaid. You know, 2/3 of all people in nursing homes are on government assistance, and they're taking money away from those people because they feel they have a mandate from the voters to reduce taxes on the very rich.
Yeah, which is pretty strange. I mean, as one of the very rich yourself, how do you respond to your colleagues, if that's the right word, who say, "Hey, wait a minute, yeah, I got, $10 billion or my net worth or whatever, but I earned every penny of it, damn it, and government doesn't, where in the Constitution does it say government can take my money away and give it to poor people who just, ne'er-do-wells and quack, 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 quack." How do you respond to that?
Well, actually, the Constitution does say that. The 19th Amendment passed does say that the government can take away some of their money and give it to other people. Yeah. That's the role of government. We have to do well together. I cannot get rich living in a country of all poor people. I cannot sell services and things to a country without any people who are able to buy those services. I don't want to live in a country filled with poor people. And frankly, most people don't. Most wealthy people understand this too. It's the people that don't are the people that run businesses extracting minerals from the earth, oil and coal. The rest of the people who run all the businesses on Main Street selling ice cream and beer, they know that they need people who can afford to shop in their stores and their restaurants. So I think almost everyone understands this except for a few very large political donors who really don't care. They feel that they were put on earth to make money from this earth.
Yeah. I have speculated in the past that this might be that if some of these folks, and I don't want to generalize too broadly, but you know, some of the folks who kind of act like Scrooge McDuck, you know, got to have more money for the money bin, that if they had not been born with into wealth, or if they had not, you know, become wealthy themselves, that we might instead be seeing them on television on an episode of hoarding, that basically this is obsessive compulsive disorder. It's hoarding disorder, this psychological illness. Only instead of hoarding old tin cans and you know, empty milk cartons and newspapers, they're hoarding money.
They do. It's true, Tom. Giving them more money is not really going to change their lives. I mean, for the very rich.
Right.
You know, some of them indeed are brilliant people. The people who are the most greedy are the ones who actually did not earn their money, are the ones who simply inherited it from their, you know, from their parents or grandparents. People like the Trumps, the Walton family that inherited the Walmart fortune. Those are people who really had the brilliance to have smart, hardworking grandparents.
Right.
But most people who worked hard and earned money know that they got money because they lived in a community that provided both consumers who can buy their stuff and the infrastructure, the education, the roads, everything else. So I think it's actually a very few people. It's just somehow the other TV and radio stations, not yours, have convinced America that it's like morally wrong for some people to help other people. Yeah. And that's a shame.
Yeah, it really and truly is. And it's a sad commentary, frankly, on our media landscape as well. I spoke with the vice president of one radio network, Salem Broadcasting, some years back, and about getting our show on them. And he told me right to my face, he said, "We'll never put a progressive or a liberal on our network, period. Ain't going to happen." And the owner, co-owner of another major network that owns several hundred radio stations around the country once told me, you know, to my face, in fact, in front of another person who was a senator, said, "Why would I put you on the radio when you're advocating raising my taxes? I'm not going to do it." And it's just like, you know, when you get down to it, that's the level at which some of these decisions are being made, and it's just shocking. And it's just, how did we get here? We're talking with Morris Pearl, the chairman of Patriotic Millionaires, a group of high net worth individuals who are concerned about the future of our country, patrioticmillionaires.org. How did we get to this place? I've been reading this book, Democracy in Chains, which is just a breathtaking view of the rise of the right, starting with Brown versus Board. That seemed to have been the activating thing. And but you know, what's your sense of how we got so horribly unequal in this country that we're back to where wealth inequality was in 1929 and the middle class is being decimated?
Yeah, I think that a small number of people. And I see the beginning is 1964 when Lyndon Johnson won the presidential election. Mm-hmm. A small group of people realized that they could, by starting at the base and growing up, sort of convince 50% of America plus one that it's just morally right to have a few rich people and lots of poor people.
This is the movement that brought Goldwater to the head of the Republican ticket, you mean, in 64?
Yeah. I mean, after Goldwater's defeat, that's when the large money people really started getting organized.
Oh, yeah, and that was 71 was the Powell memo. Yeah. 76 was, well, 72 was Powell being put on the Supreme Court, and 76 was the Buckley case where he wrote the decision saying that giving money to politicians is not a behavior that can be regulated, as it had been since the George Washington administration. It is free, constitutionally protected free speech under the First Amendment.
And it's just the idea that they believe that rich people should have more power. They believe that that's just right.
Yeah.
And we can't argue about, this policy will be bad for poor people or this policy will be good or bad for rich people, because I think we all agree on that. Even the Republicans agree that their policies will decimate the poor. It's just we don't agree on whether that's the proper role of government or not. Right. They honestly believe that it's not the proper role of government to help poor people. And we believe it is the proper role of government, and we have to have that debate, not a debate about some technicalities about how many people live in which states and who will be helped and hurt by this particular bill.
Yeah.
But the basic philosophy, I want to live in a country where we can use some of our vast wealth, some of our huge resources to bring up the people who are less fortunate, and then I'll be richer too.
You know, back when the British Empire was unraveling and American democracy was in its very earliest phases, a preacher by the name of John Calvin out of, I think, Scotland, maybe Wales or the UK, but in that region, pitched this idea that if we're going to do away with divinely ordained kings and queens governing us, since mankind is inherently evil, that's the first premise of Christianity, all people are sinners, then therefore we've got to figure out who God blessed, because the theory always was God blessed the kings and queens, and therefore they have the divine right to rule. So if we're going to rule ourselves, we have to look among all these evil people and figure out who was blessed by God to make them the rulers. And Calvin's solution was, well, the obvious, conspicuous demonstration of God's blessing is wealth. So, you know, the wealthy should rule us, and this became Calvinism, and now it's kind of neo-Calvinism. It's the the school, the religion, and even the place that Betsy DeVos came out of, for example. The headquarters of the Calvinist Church in the United States now is in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And Donald Trump echoed that night before last in a speech in Iowa, where he said he didn't want he didn't want a poor person running the economy, and he was saying this to justify putting the head of Goldman Sachs as his chairman of economic advisors and putting a billionaire as his Secretary of Commerce and a very wealthy guy from Goldman Sachs as his Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin. And I'm wondering your thoughts on that.
He honestly believes that. That's why it was such a big deal for him when some newspaper published that he has like $4 billion when he said he had $8 billion or whatever the numbers were. Yeah. That's why that was like devastating to him, is because he honestly believes that how much money somebody has is the measure of how good that person is or how deserving that person is or something. And, I've met other people like that too. He's not the only one, but I just think that's wrong. I mean, I disagree with that. And I think that's the debate we have to have, is that we have to talk to the American people and explain to them, you can be a good person even if you're poor. You can be a good person even if you're not a Goldman Sachs executive and make hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right, and you can be a competent economist and a competent manager of the economy.
That's true too, yes. Yeah.
It's
there are plenty of competent economists who are not rich.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It's very interesting times we live in. Morris Pearl, the chairman of Patriotic Millionaires, patrioticmillionaires.org is the website. You can tweet him at Morris_Pearl or at Patriotic Mills, MILLS. And Morris Pearl, the former managing director of BlackRock, Inc., himself a high net worth individual. Mr. Pearl, thank you so much for being with us today.
Great to be on your show, Tom.
Great talking. We'll be back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Back with your calls, my thoughts, and the news of the day right after this. And welcome back. Norma in Montgomery, Alabama. Hey, Norma, thanks for watching Free Speech TV on DirecTV. What's on your mind today?
Oh, hi, Dr. Tom. Mainly, I don't think that people understand that we, as a people, as a country, are allowing these insurance companies to hold us hostage. They are essentially standing between us and the hospital, standing between us and the doctors, and saying, you will pay me or you can't do this. And they are essentially, they have become, in my opinion, terrorists. And they are acting as if you can't do this unless you pay me. It's like forking over a ransom to a health insurance company, or you can't have a doctor, you can't have a prescription. And I don't know at what point our country is going to wake up and realize that these people are holding us hostage, holding the doctors for ransom. And I am afraid of civil unrest myself. But we need expanded Medicare for all, because we cannot have people who are uninsured, particularly when you have right to work being enacted pretty soon. I think it goes into effect here in August, which means that whoever you work for now has the legal right to lower your wages. And if you look at all of these Chamber of Commerce organizations in the different states that run the businesses, if they all get together and decide that, starting in January, we won't pay a man more than $9, we won't pay a woman more than $5 an hour, people cannot pay their mortgages, their rent, their utilities. They can't pay their automobile insurance, make a car payment. They can't pay to send their children to school. We could wind up with as many as 150 million people homeless. Is that the goal? Is that the goal, is to turn us into serfs next year or turn us into a homeless country?
I think Morris Pearl himself, I don't know if he's a multimillionaire or a billionaire, but managing director of BlackRock, one of the biggest, I think it's a hedge fund, one of the biggest funds anyway in the world, multi-billion-dollar fund. I think he was probably right. He just said they don't care.
That's correct. But the thing is, we outnumber them. And I don't think that they will be safe in this country.
But here's the problem. Our dollars don't outnumber their dollars. And the Supreme Court in 1976 in the Buckley case ruled that basically dollars count as much as individual voices, that the dollars are speech. And so now we're being drowned in the free speech of billionaires. And I think a great example of that was the Georgia 6th. So, not that I'm, you're kind of arguing my point of view here, Norman. I'm being devil's advocate, I guess. But we've got a big hill to climb here.
I know. And I think that once people realize that there is nothing that they can do to stop this, that they're going to wake up, and then we're going to be in trouble. But speaking of dollars, how would you like to go into a place and pay a bill in cash and be told you must pay a fee now to use cash? I normally pay my utilities in cash. Right. And so I go in and I pay my AT&T bill, and I'm told I must pay a fee to use cash now.
Oh, that's bizarre.
Yes. And I said, are you out of your mind? This is legal tender. She said, well, it costs our country too much money to print cash. We cannot continue to print paper money. And I said, wait a minute. If it costs too much to print paper cash, then maybe we need to renegotiate the cost of the fibers.
There you go. Norma, thank you for the call. And thanks for watching Free Speech TV. We'll be right back. Hey.
Hi, I'm Heather with Free Speech TV. Your support, whether through giving of donations, volunteering, or even spreading the word, has made it possible for the only independent progressive news network to sustain for more than 20 years. Now, you can give to Free Speech TV through the Branch of Gratitude. This program is a sustainable way to give that reduces waste through paper mailing, postage, and staff hours. By choosing to participate in the Branch of Gratitude, you are joining hands with the socially conscious community and sending a message to the world that Free Speech TV is not only here to stay, it is here to thrive. Please call 877-378-8669 or go online to freespeech.org. Make a difference and join the Branch of Gratitude today.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you and Doyle in Winnemucca, Nevada. Hey, Doyle, what's on your mind today?
Hello, Hello, Tom.
Hey, Doyle.
Pleasure getting to talk to you. I've tried a few times, but this is the first time I got through to you.
Persistence, Doyle. It's a great
Right
thing.
on.
So what's up?
Well, I'd say I found some scriptures that where it seems to me like that Christ is doing the same thing that you're trying to do, and it's going on right now. But
Okay.
I would like your opinion on it, and it's Ecclesiastes chapter 7, where God says he's going to make the very rich throw their money into the street, and he's going to give it to the poor and even to the wicked and foreigners. And the poor people are really, I think it's the protesters, are going to take possession of the money and over the government and over the rich people's houses. And I think it's happening right now through the protesters. They will eventually take over the government, just like that lady was talking a few minutes ago. And
I'm skeptical of...
It's a worldwide thing. It's not just here in the United States. It's worldwide where they're
You're right.
protesting. And
we're seeing two forces worldwide, Doyle, right now.
write this down. It's Ezekiel chapter 7, and starting especially with verse 14, where it says that they have blown the trumpet and everyone is ready. And I take that to mean the police and the protesters. But it says no one is going to battle. And I think that that means that the police or the law enforcement will get the order to shoot the protesters, but they will refuse. And that same scripture says that God is going to take away the power and the pride of the very powerful, which I take to be the law enforcement. And
Doyle, we don't have to look at a 3,000-year-old book to figure this out. There are two forces right now that are colliding literally all around the world. We've seen this in France. We've seen this in the UK. We've seen this certainly in the United States. One of those forces is the billionaire class, the Davos class, the extremely wealthy. And the other force is the force of average working people, lower income people who are saying, hey, wait a minute, stop taking our bread. You know, stop taking the food out of our mouths. Stop making it hard for us to live. We deserve, we by virtue of our humanity. I mean, this is we deserve life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And, you know, the principles upon which this country was founded. And those two forces are coming into collision all around the world. And you know, the oligarchs sponsoring right-wing movements, whether it's the Republican Party in the United States or Marine Le Pen in France or, what's his name in the UK, it's happening. Doyle, thanks for the call.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be back in just a minute. We're not making it. We need your help. This is the last day of this week of the fund drive. I hope we don't have to come back next week. We may have to if we don't hit our goals for the week on this day. So please call now, 877-378-8669. This network depends on you. And I keep saying this over and over and over again, but it's so true. Free Speech TV is this extraordinary jewel in the
muck of the media landscape of capitalist America. I don't know how to say it beyond that. It's just, it's a really important thing. And it's here because you have been here supporting Free Speech TV. And for that, I'm very grateful. And I know all the people at Free Speech TV are really grateful. But we need to keep this thing going. And yeah, it's the summer. Gifts, donations are always down in the summer. And it's been a pretty crazy political year. We've got, the orange Cittadini running the country and et cetera. But we still have to do the basic business of paying the connection fee bills and paying the electric bills and making payroll and just the stuff, just the normal stuff. There's no CEOs getting 6, 7, 8-figure salaries here. There's no stockholders taking dividends so that they can enjoy a top tax rate of 23.8% instead of the 39% that everybody else has to pay. There's no billionaire oligarchs like Rupert Murdoch, behind the network or demanding fealty or whatever. There's no big corporate overlord like Comcast or Time Warner saying, you may not speak about net neutrality. You may not speak about the merger of Time Warner and AT&T. You may not do a show about the Sherman Antitrust Act. There's none of that, right? And I know people at other networks, they live with that. And I thank God I don't have to. I mean, this Free Speech TV for me is liberating. I can speak about anything. And I do, as you well know. And, the same is true of all the other talent on this network. And we all do it in our own way. I mean, Amy is thoughtful and serious, and Stephanie is irreverent and funny, and I'm whatever I am, and all the other great programming. But I don't think any of it, frankly, could exist on commercial television. Because the things that I say, the things that Amy Goodman says, the things that, are things that reveal corporate malfeasance, that reveal the perfidy of the conservative billionaire class, particularly the petro-billionaires who are willing to lie to us in order to make more money, destroying our planet. I mean, isn't that incredible? You've got this whole Koch network. They raised $900 million, almost $1 billion for the last election, and maybe even more. I mean, nobody knows. So much of this money is invisible. They fund the great report in Politico about a year and a half ago about how these guys, they throw a few $1 million a year, $5 or $6 million a year at Limbaugh, $3 or $4 million a year at Hannity. I mean, it's insane the amount of money that's floating around in the right-wing sphere. And I mean, it's insane how just that this is the media landscape in the United States, but it's the reality. So with a $60 donation, Free Speech TV, water bottle, and pocket constitution, with a $120 contribution, What Would Jefferson Do book, and a free speech water bottle and a pocket constitution, with a $240 gift, Rebooting the American Dream, the book What Would Jefferson Do, the water bottle, and the Constitution, with a $360 donation, which could be $30 a month for a year, the Legacy of Secrecy book, Rebooting the American Dream book, the Free Speech TV water bottle, and the pocket constitution. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Washington, D.C., and I'll take you to lunch. That said, I mean, you know about those premiums. That said, we really need to hit these goals, and we need to do it. Please help us do it today, because if we can't, Monday, instead of running a brand new book report, we'll be here pitching for money again. And it's not that I don't like doing that. I mean, it's the most fun thing in the world, but I don't mind doing my part for Free Speech TV, putting in this effort. I hope you can do yours. Please call now, 877-378-8669. This network is something worth keeping. It's something worth I mean, at this point, what we're talking about is keeping it. It's worth building and strengthening too. Thanks so much. Call us 877-378-86.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can support the Thom Hartmann Program and see video of our entire 3-hour show over at patreon.com/Thom Hartmann. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. The Babylon Bee is a spoof site. So I'll just, I give away the joke right up front, but they've got what might be a prescient. I just retweeted this thing. Is this prescient? Is this, are they looking into the future? Dateline DC, confirming the widespread rumors that Sean Spicer would be departing his office in short order. President Donald Trump has chosen InfoWars chief and renowned conspiracy theorist Alex Jones as the new press secretary, the White House announced today. The fiery Jones wasted no time getting in front of the cameras, holding his inaugural press conference shortly after the announcement. "I am the new press secretary," he bellowed in his distinct Texas growl at all the reporters present, occasionally taking a handkerchief out of his pocket to dab perspiration from his bright red face. "Ah!" he continued, beating his chest like a gorilla. "We're coming for you, globalists. 1776 will commence, you wicked, wicked devils," he added before mumbling something about gay frogs. Press Secretary Jones concluded the conference early, dismissing every person in the room after announcing that only InfoWars and Breitbart reporters would be allowed to attend press events from this point forward. So, coincidence or conspiracy? Anyhow, Tiffany in Washington, D.C. Hey, Tiffany, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm well. What's up?
I'm actually calling to talk about some of the intense alt-right actions that are going on this weekend and what counter-actions are also happening.
Great. Tell us about it.
So we know that the alt-right, including Richard Spencer and, now they're kind of factionalizing, are having two different rallies this weekend, one at Lincoln Memorial and one at the White House. In response to this, for a few weeks...
Wait a second. Did you say Richard Spencer?
Yes, Richard Spencer.
So these are the neo-Nazis. He's the white supremacist movement in the United States. So he's having events at the Washington Monument and at the White House this weekend?
At the Lincoln Memorial.
Lincoln Memorial. I'm sorry.
And what's interesting, Tom, is that these groups are actually splitting. They're factionalizing. So some of them are getting to be too racist, too white nationalist. It's really interesting. However, what's also interesting is what the left is doing in response. So typically what we do is we go in and we stand against them. And that's what we're going to do in the future, and that's what we have done in the past, and it's worked. But something that's going on in D.C. is this kind of greater idea of what it means to be standing against repression, right? Standing against fascist repression, state repression, police violence, brutality. And so we've got an event organized on Sunday occurring at the same time as the fascist rallies, but at a completely different location because it has a different goal entirely. We're going to be trying to build our community, right? Build with people who are already affected by these kinds of incidents, by police violence, by fascist violence, by the kind of violence that we really need to be connecting dots between. And we'll be having an event at MPD headquarters starting at 12 p.m. on Sunday, June 25th. People are welcome to come. It's going to be completely removed from the other happenings this week. Different folks have different ideas about how to respond to things like this when, neo-Nazis have rallies. And we're saying, let's see what happens if we decide to focus on our own communities, focus on building trust, building relationships and bonds amongst the groups that are already affected by this.
So not just fighting the evil, but building the good.
Exactly. Like, I think you kind of need both, right?
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
That is great. Is there now this is DC-centric, the information you're providing, but this kind of thing is happening all over the country.
Is there, for people who are in D.C. and for people around the country who might be inspired by what you just said, Tiffany, and want to create their own version of it, is there a website, or any way, a Facebook page where people can find out more about the counter events that you're talking about?
Well, Tom, that's a great question. We just kind of started putting this together. We actually don't have a website. This was organized by the leftist groups, the socialist groups that helped organize the May Day event here in D.C. And we'd absolutely love to see this happening around the country. While the alt-right splits, the left is uniting.
Yeah.
And, it's a wonderful, it's a beautiful thing. So perhaps in the works is going to be something like that.
Well, Tiffany, the minute that you've got a Facebook page or a website, let me know, and we will promote it, okay?
Thanks so much.
Okay. Thanks so much, Tiffany. It is people like you and the people who you're working with who are really going to save this country. And I so honor your service to your country, your work that you're doing. Thank you. It's facebook.com/events. So that's a bunch of numbers. I'm not sure. But there is some stuff on Facebook, apparently. Nate just found some. So we'll see what we can do.
We'll see it on the Smash Racism DC Facebook, although it is like a bunch of numbers. It doesn't have...
Yeah, Smash Racism DC, though. If you plug that into Facebook, into the search function, it'll pop up?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Tiffany, thank you so much. It's great to hear from you. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Thank you. RJ in San Jose, California, listening on Sirius XM. Hey, RJ, what's up?
Hey, Tom, thanks. I just have two things. The first is I'm a lawyer. I do a lot of negotiations. And when I see the other side being very, very, very confident, I always think, well, what do they got? And both with Trump and with the health care bill, right, I understand all the exigencies around it, like millionaires buying stuff and conservatives thinking this, that, or the other. But I'm wondering, what have they got? Because the bill is so negative. It's so unpopular, so terrible. But they seem like, the Senate, the Republicans in the Senate, the Republicans in the Congress, they seem like they have no concerns at all about it. Like,
here's their math.
From the fact that they don't
RJ, they have a very specific math. And this is why they're so frantic to get this thing passed, in the next week and a half. What the Republicans know, and I'm guessing Democrats know this as well, is that it is very rare that the outcome of an election is decided on something that happened more than 6 months before. So, Americans have short memories. It's like, Americans sitting around noticing that the retirement age for Social Security has gone from 65 to 67. They're not sitting around going, oh, Ronald Reagan did this to us. They don't remember that Reagan was responsible for that. Now, that was, he pushed it out 30 years. These guys are only pushing it out 7 years. But the fact of the matter is that if this law passes in the next year, between now and the election in 2018, nobody's really going to notice much difference. It phases in over a 7-year period, and it cuts Medicaid from right now. The federal share of Medicaid for the states is 90%. The feds pay 90%. The states pay 10%. It cuts it from 90% to, in 2018, down to 85%. People aren't going to notice that 5% cut. And then in 2019, down to 80%. And then in 2020, down to 75%. And in the 2020 election, probably it'll just be a blip. It's only going to affect the kind of the fringe of the population, not the core of the population. And then after the election in 2020, when Trump is running for re-election or Pence is running for re-election, as the case may be, and then it really kicks in. And so, this is political strategy as much as anything else. And that's why McConnell and Ryan are so confident, because they know that memories are short.
Great. Well, the second thing, Tom, is I really appreciated the guy from Patriotic Millionaires coming on, because and this is a quick pivot to, we just came back from a family vacation to D.C. and went to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And one of the things that just really struck me there is it's I call it the building equivalent of the autobiography of Malcolm X. I mean, if you're not woke going in, you will be coming out. But if you go through a particular piece of it, which is between the adoption of slavery in the United States and Jim Crow, or basically all the way up to the 20th century, you realize there's a big myth about America, about capitalism America being somehow propounded by brilliant people that pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. And
oh, this is a story Donald Trump told in Iowa night before last about why he has rich people in his cabinet.
Right, but my point is, you go through there and you realize, yeah, there were some smart people in America, but the wealth of this country, the shadow of which goes into our nation now, our time now, was built on free labor. It's just free labor,
Yep.
I mean, I don't really have to be that smart to say if I enslave people and get the work done for free, I'm going to be wealthy. Yeah. And it led me to believe that, the Republicans always say these days, well, the Democrats, that's, they're the party of slavery. You remember that, right? The Republicans, they freed the slaves. I think the modern Republican Party is the party of indentured servitude. It's very simple. They want indentured servants.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, their opposition to minimum wage and any kind of benefits that lift people out of poverty. Franklin Roosevelt said, a necessitous man is not a free man. These people are not proponents of freedom, except for the very, very wealthy. RJ, well said. Thank you very much for the call. Thanks for listening to Sirius XM. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We're going to check in on the news here in a minute, and we'll be continuing taking your calls. Also, Congressman Keith Ellison will be with us at the top of the next hour. And welcome back. Don, watching Free Speech TV in Omaha, Nebraska. Hey, Don, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Love your shows, and thank you for your documentary works.
My pleasure.
Here's Trump. Hey, guys, you let Bush lie us into a war where over 1 million civilians were murdered. What's wrong with me telling a few fibs, huh?
Right.
Yeah. And another short comment here. All of this talk about the Russians' influence on our elections, maybe you might want to have an investigation of the Koch brothers. Do you know they inherited a fortune from their father, who was, an oil billionaire from Russia.
Right. Well, he made his money with Stalin in Russia, his initial money, yeah, but he came back to the United States and became a vigorous anti-communist.
Connections with Russia?
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange. It's kind of a, what goes around comes around, but I think that we should decry and condemn interference in our election process by Russians or by oligarchs. Democracy should be of, by, and for the people of the country in which it's happening. And by the way, we should also be looking at our own behavior around the world, where we have overthrown and disrupted democracies all over the planet. This might be a kind of a crystallizing moment for Americans to evaluate our own behavior. Which is not to blame the United States for Russia interfering with our election or anything like that, but I think it's actually there's arguably some kind of a silver lining in this thing, in that it's causing people to say, hey, wait a minute, we've got insecure election systems. We didn't know that. Well, hell, if the Russians can hack into our voting systems, so can the Chinese, and so can the Republicans. I mean, it's not like the Russians are the only people in the world who can hack something. So why the hell do we have insecure voting systems? I mean, that should be causing us to go, what? Scooby-Doo. And anyway, yeah.
You got it.
Okay, Don, thanks a lot for the call. It's great to hear from you. How are we doing on time? Okay, we got 1 minute here. Umberto, let me click the right button here. Umberto in Hialeah, Florida. Hey, Umberto, what's up?
Well, I'm going to make it quick. Tom, basically the reason why Donald Trump and the Republicans are literally getting away with murder and with everything that they want to do, and they're just steamrolling over the Democratic Party, is we have to face a fact. The progressive left-wing movement in this country has lost so much ground, not just politically, but socially and culturally.
Yeah, I would argue, Umberto, that's not the progressive movement in this country. It's the institutional Democratic Party. And I think it's because they strayed away from progressivism. I mean, Lyndon Johnson was outside of the Vietnam War, a very progressive president. The Great Society, FDR, very progressive president. Harry Truman, very progressive president. Arguably Dwight Eisenhower, Republican, a somewhat progressive president. Jack Kennedy, of course, a progressive president. So, but the party kind of lost touch with that over the last 20 years, and I think they're in the process now of getting that back. In fact, that'll be a great question to ask one of the guys who's in charge of the party, Congressman Keith Ellison, who's the deputy chair of the DNC. We'll do that right after the break. Roberto, thanks for the call. We'll be back. Stick around. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and let's check in with Talk Media News and find out what's going on in the world today. This report brought to you by goatsfortheoldgoat.com and Loving What You Do, a new book by Ellen Ratner. On the line with us, Patrick Gavin with Talk Media News. Hey, Patrick.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. So what's up in the world today?
Well, I thought I'd give a quick update. I know you guys have picked apart the Senate's health care bill, but I thought I'd just give a quick update on kind of how the politics of it are looking. Right now we have, I believe it's 4 senators, Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, Rand Paul, and Ron Johnson, saying that, at least as it's written right now, will not support it.
No, they're going to roll over. Ron Johnson has already said it'll just take a few minor tweaks and I'll be there. The other 3, these are just peacocks, these guys. They're trying to preen and say to their Tea Party base, don't worry, I'm going to fight for, but they're going to fall into place. I mean, the problem is Murkowski, Collins, and is there one more?
Yeah, right. And I think that's what I mean. I mean, my inclination is tracks with yours. I mean, I think some folks wondered, as would be the case in all these instances, whether or not these 4 represent a larger group of people, or is it quite the opposite, which is that they'll end up just falling in line, which I think is true not only from the public statements that they've made, but also, I think it's very hard for unless you're Rand Paul, who. My gut says he'll probably remain a no, but I think very few Republicans want to be tagged as the lone vote that prevented the repeal of Obamacare. So I think for that reason alone,
they're going to fall into line.
Yeah,
and then it goes to conference, and then we got to figure out what to do.
Exactly. I do think Mitch McConnell will get the vote he wants next week, no matter what. I think he wants to just move on from this as quickly as possible.
Well, but then after it comes out of conference, it's got to be re-voted on, doesn't it?
It does. Exactly.
In both the House and the Senate.
It does. I mean, I think typically, once these things come out of the reconciliation process, their odds of success are pretty good, which doesn't mean it's a sure thing, but, 8 out of 10 times it usually is. Some news coming out of the House we can expect from next week. Politico is actually reporting that the House is going to bring 2 immigration-related bills to a floor vote. The first is Kate's Law, which was named after Kate Steinle, the woman who was shot and killed in San Francisco by an immigrant. That would boost penalties for immigrants trying to re-enter the United States after they've been deported. The House looks to vote on that bill next week. And the second is one that would go after the quote-unquote sanctuary cities as well. So Republicans are planning on picking up the, non-controversial topic of immigration next week.
Right. Well, it's, on the Republican side at least, it's not anywhere near as controversial as stripping people of their Medicaid.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. So what else is going on in the world, Patrick?
Well, along those same lines, I mean, what's interesting with regards to the health care vote and how, at least on the Senate side, it was very much drafted outside of the public view or even outside of the Senate Democrats' view. Believe it or not, we may actually see a bit more of that. The Senate is considering the same approach to its tax reform bill, which is that I think both congressional leaders and White House officials have actually said that they hope to shape the legislative largely in private meetings, and that the sort of gripes about secrecy around health legislation from their perspective just don't stick. I mean, it sticks in the craw of Democrats, obviously, and I think Democratic supporters. But in terms of being a political loser, I think that they feel as if it's not. And so on something like tax reform, which, affects trillions and trillions of dollars, I think that both congressional Republicans and the counterparts in the White House think that maybe going about it privately is the best thing to do.
Interesting. Well, we'll see how that plays out. What else is up?
A couple more things. It's interesting. Supreme Court just Chris Hayes actually kind of got this conversation rolling on Twitter, and now we're seeing a number of people actually talk about the possibility of it, which is that Supreme Court justices typically announce their retirement when the court ends its term each June. That, in this case, will be Monday. Chris Hayes kind of speculated on Twitter that, let's not forget that if this is the case this year, that could be the retirement of Justice Kennedy, which, as we know, is significant in a lot of ways, but certainly I think on the issue of Roe v. Wade could certainly tilt the scales against that particular decision. So a lot of eyes will be looking at the Supreme Court Monday to see if Kennedy does announce his retirement. I don't know that anyone's got a good insight one way or the other, but it's either now or obviously wait potentially at the minimum 3 years or potentially even longer. So, but as one of the Supreme Court's traditional swing votes, if he does retire, that's going to be a really big deal, especially after the appointment of Neil Gorsuch.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that Thomas is also thinking of retiring. He's just sick of the job.
He's young.
Yeah, I know. Well, he's in his 60s, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know if there's anything to that or not. But. Okay. So what else is going on in the world?
We'll see Monday.
Yeah.
Also coming up next week, we'll see a return of Barack Obama coming to the campaign trail. The next big race after Georgia, and then, of course, after Montana and Kansas, and these kind of consistently disappointing races for Democrats, is going to be the gubernatorial race out of Virginia. And former President Obama is expected to return. It'll be a first sort of public return to electoral politics by joining him on the trail, both Obama and Ralph Northam, the candidate for whom he'll be campaigning.
Right, because Terry McAuliffe is getting term limited out, right?
Exactly, that's right. And I think that, I don't know enough on this particular story to know the timeline of it to see if this was something that was sort of always in the works, or if, Democrats are in full panic mode such that they're willing and he's able to, perhaps drag the most popular Democrat in the country out of retirement. See if we can stop.
Good question. Or it could be too that President Obama is just getting bored.
I'm sure. I mean, my guess says he's not bored, but I do think he's probably incredibly frustrated watching so much of what he did get rolled back. I mean, there's no way.
Yeah.
He totally respects. I mean, as he said, he very much respects the process and respects people make their votes, and the pendulum of history swings back and forth, and he gets all that. But I also think too to see the Paris Climate Agreement, and now the healthcare law, and then the Cuba policy, and national monuments. I mean, all these things that were really hallmarks of his political career get rolled back. That I think for him that does sort of cross the line of sort of when he can personally decide to get involved as well. And to be honest too, I mean, even by his own. I mean, you'll remember when people said, what are you going to do when you leave the White House? Are you going to go to Silicon Valley? Are you going to go here? Are you going to go there? He actually, I mean, he may end up doing some of those things, but he always said that the one thing he thinks he can do best is work on the Democratic Party's grassroots operation and also recruiting the next generation of young leaders, be it, I think his first public interview was with a bunch of young activists and young political leaders. And he's obviously very involved in My Brother's Keeper. And so actually, when you think about it that way, this idea that as more and more young Democratic candidates lose in these sort of special elections, the idea that he would kind of come out and say, all right, I'm going to get involved in this actually makes a lot of sense.
It does. It does. Patrick Gavin with Talk Media News. Thank you, Patrick.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Hi, I'm Heather with Free Speech TV. Your
Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com. Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com. Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit tomsbeets.com. We're not making it. We need your help. This is the last day of this week of the fund drive. I hope we don't have to come back next week. We may have to if we don't hit our goals for the week on this day. So please call now, 877-378-8669. This network depends on you. And I keep saying this over and over and over again, but it's so true. Free Speech TV is this extraordinary jewel in the muck of the media landscape of capitalist America. I don't know how to say it beyond that. It's a really important thing. And it's here because you have been here supporting Free Speech TV. And for that, I'm very grateful. And I know all the people at Free Speech TV are really grateful. But we need to keep this thing going. And yeah, it's the summer. Gifts, donations are always down in the summer. And it's been a pretty crazy political year. We've got, the orange Cittadini running the country and et cetera. But we still have to do the basic business of paying the connection fee bills and paying the electric bills and making payroll and just the stuff, just the normal stuff. There's no CEOs getting 6, 7, 8-figure salaries here. There's no stockholders taking dividends so that they can enjoy a top tax rate of 23.8% instead of the 39% that everybody else has to pay. There's no billionaire oligarchs like Rupert Murdoch, behind the network or demanding fealty or, whatever. There's no big corporate overlord like Comcast or Time Warner saying, you may not speak about net neutrality. You may not speak about the merger of Time Warner and AT&T. You may not do a show about the Sherman Antitrust Act. There's none of that, right? And I know people in other networks, they live with that. And I thank God I don't have to. I mean, this Free Speech TV for me is liberating. I can speak about anything. And I do, as you well know. And, the same is true of all the other talent on this network. And we all do it in our own way. I mean, Amy is thoughtful and serious, and Stephanie is irreverent and funny, and I'm whatever I am, and all the other great programming. And but I don't think any of it, frankly, could exist on commercial television, because the things that I say, the things that Amy Goodman says, the things that are things that reveal corporate malfeasance, that reveal the perfidy of the conservative billionaire class, particularly the petro-billionaires who are willing to lie to us in order to make more money, destroying our planet. I mean, isn't that incredible? You've got this whole Koch network. They raised $900 million, almost $1 billion for the last election, and maybe even more. I mean, nobody knows. So much of this money is invisible. They fund great report in Politico about a year and a half ago about how these guys, they throw a few $1 million a year, $5 or $6 million a year at Limbaugh, $3 or $4 million a year at Hannity. I mean, it's insane the amount of money that's floating around in the right-wing sphere. And I mean, it's insane how just that this is the media landscape in the United States, but it's the reality. So with a $60 donation, Free Speech TV, water bottle, and pocket constitution, with a $120 contribution, What Would Jefferson Do book, and a Free Speech water bottle and a pocket constitution, with a $240 gift, Rebooting the American Dream, the book What Would Jefferson Do, the water bottle, and the Constitution, with a $360 donation, which could be $30 a month for a year, the Legacy of Secrecy book, Rebooting the American Dream book, the Free Speech TV water bottle, and the pocket constitution. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Washington, D.C., and I'll take you to lunch. That said, I mean, you know about those premiums. That said, we really need to hit these goals, and we need to do it. Please help us do it today, because if we can't, Monday, instead of running a brand new book report, we'll be here pitching for money again. And it's not that I don't like doing that. I mean, it's the most fun thing in the world, but I don't mind doing my part for Free Speech TV, putting in this effort. I hope you can do yours. Please call now, 877-378-8669. This network is something worth keeping. It's something worth, I mean, at this point, what we're talking about is keeping it. It's worth building and strengthening too. Thanks so much. Call us, 877-378-8669.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Congressman Keith Ellison will be with us in just a minute. I just wanted to remind you again, Igor Volsky was on our program earlier. He's with the Center for American Progress. They've come up with a new product. Product is the wrong word. A new tool that you can use. It's the Trump Care Toolkit. The website is trumpcaretoolkit.org. And you can click on, you know, they identified 14 senators who would have reasons to be opposed to Trump Care. Shelley Moore Capito in West Virginia. You know, she may object to the loss of coverage for 122,800 West Virginians. And, you know, possibly, we don't know her position. I don't know her position on Planned Parenthood. But Lisa Murkowski, 62,500 Alaskans are going to lose their health coverage under this legislation. Senator Dean Heller of Nevada, 138,100 Nevadans are going to lose their coverage. And so you can just click on their name and it'll just generate a tweet automatically for you. Or you can click on the phone icon and it'll call directly to their office. Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska. Well, that's interesting. You know, 62,000 Alaskans. Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona, 465,000 Arizonans will lose their coverage under Trump Care. Susan Collins of Maine, 116,000 Mainers will lose their coverage. Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana. These are all Republican senators who all may be swayable. Senator Bill, and if you hear me calling any of them out, you can call the switchboard for the Senate is 202-224-3121, and you know, call your senator. Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, the 343,000 Louisianans will lose their health care coverage under Trump Care. Senator Bob Corker, Tennessee, 637,000 Tennesseans will lose their coverage. Senator Rob Portman of Ohio, 539,700 Ohioans will lose their coverage under Trump Care. Senator Cory Gardner of Colorado, 271,000 Coloradans will lose their health care. Senator Richard Shelby of Alabama, 483,000 Alabamans will lose their health care. Alabamians, I guess it is? Yeah. Senator Luther Strange of Alabama, 435,000 Alabamians. Senator Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania, 770,000 Pennsylvanians will lose health care under Trump care. And Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, 637,000 Tennesseans will lose their health care. So if you go to TrumpCareToolkit.org, you can just, I did this morning, and you look at my timeline, you'll see all these tweets to every single one of these people that I just called out their names. I tweeted to every one of them, and you can too. You don't have to retweet my tweets. You can create your own. And you can also call these senators if they happen to be in your district. So anyhow, that's top of my list of really cool stuff that's going on. They created this really, really nice, very convenient tool for you to use. Oh, great. Congressman Keith Ellison is on the line with us. Congressman, and I should say also the co-chair of the deputy chair of the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, a U.S. Congressman brilliantly representing the 5th District of Minnesota, ellison.house.gov and democrats.org, the websites. Congressman, welcome back to the program. It's been a while.
Great to be with you, Tom. How's everything today?
Very good, thank you. How are you? And how is the state of our republic?
Well, I tell you, I'm hoping that Americans are in a fighting mood, man. We got to defend this republic right now. Whether you say it's you talk about just the government alone, we have this head of state attacking freedom of the press, undermining the judiciary, cutting agencies that help people like the EPA and Labor Department. We have a president who serially and lies. I mean, the most recent one is, I never really had no tapes.
Right.
You know, I mean, so the state of the republic, I'd say that we are in an incipient period we're in the beginning of what could slide into tyranny, honestly.
Well, Jimmy Carter on this program a year ago said, we're no longer a democracy. We are now an oligarchy featuring unlimited political bribery.
Yeah, and then you add, and so we saw the expansion of the surveillance state under Bush and Obama. There was some sense that those leaders had some sense of the rule of law or had a sense of the rule of law. This one doesn't. Yeah. What would they do with bulk collection? What would they do, with the ability to spy on anyone, anywhere? Yeah. I mean, that's just the government. On the financial side, on the economic side, growing concentration of economic power in fewer and fewer hands. It looks like Amazon wants to pick up Whole Foods now. They can basically run everybody else out of the food business. You have the internet companies charging us 4 times what it costs to get on the internet in Europe because there's only 4 of them. They don't even have to have a meeting to set prices. Right. They just sort of see what else the other guy's doing and do that.
Yeah, the airlines do it too.
Airlines add them to the list, and the financial services industry is deeply concentrated and charging monopoly and oligopolistic pricing.
So the Democratic Party, we've had 4 painful losses. We can debate as Greg Palast says, voter suppression is playing a big role in these things. We can talk about that, and we should. But there's also the critique that the Democratic Party in general does not have a simple bumper sticker message. You say Republicans, people go, God, guns, or small government and lower taxes or whatever. I mean, their brand is, even though I think it's a disingenuous branding, I don't think it accurately reflects the Republican Party. I think the actual Republican Party is billionaires above everything else. Right. But nonetheless, their brand is well known. The Democratic brand is not so easily defined, at least, boiling it down to a couple of bumper stickers. How are you? I mean, you and Tom Perez are basically running the Democratic Party. What are your plans? First of all, do you agree with my analysis? And if not, please, feel free to disagree with me. And secondly, what do you do with this?
Well, we do need to tighten our brand, but I think that most people know that the Democratic Party is the party of the working people of America, and it's the party of respect for all. So we are the party. We are the party of Roosevelt. We are the party that said that the economy needs to work for everybody, not just the billionaires and the millionaires. And two, with the party of Humphrey and MLK and Johnson that said that no matter who you are, what you look like, what color you are, what religion, you should be treated with full respect in this country.
Amen.
Two simple ideas. I mean, and by the way, we should maybe respect the environment that we live in too. Those three ideas, to me, are what defines democracy. You can have a lot of refinements within that, but those are the things that would capture, the most conservative Democrat to the most progressive one. But I think that we got to tighten that, though. I think it is loose. We need to drive it home. But I'm gonna tell you, I think that we make one fatal error, and I say this with some degree of humility and open to people challenging me. I don't think that the problem is just that we have not encapsulated a message and articulated it in a bumper sticker fashion. I think the problem is also we have not delivered it door to door in an unrelenting way over the course of time. What do I mean? Now, whenever somebody says 99%, I'm like, well, that's like either an exaggerated number. That's not like a real number. But this is a real number. 99% of all of the money spent in the last presidential election on the Democratic side was in 15 battleground states.
Wow.
95% of the visits for the presidential candidate were in the 15 battleground states. So we don't show up in Wisconsin. We don't show up in Kentucky. We don't even show up in Minnesota because that's blue, but we only won by 1.6%.
Right.
But on the other hand, we don't show up in West Virginia because that's red, and we know we can't get it. We show up in Ohio, Florida. The bottom line is the Democratic Party has been a presidentially focused party. We need to go to be every single seat from dog catcher to Senate and everything in between party. We have been a battleground state party. We need to be a coast to coast and everything in between. Every freaking precinct, we need to be having program and engagement and organizing. And then we've been an every 4 years party. And so that's why we take a bath in the midterms, and that's why Republicans have done so well at even local races, even city council races and school boards, which ought to be our bread and butter.
Yeah.
Because we put all our markers on the table for the presidency. So we got to move from presidency to every race, to battleground to every state and every county, to every 4 years to every year. And we got to also do one more thing. We got to go from television to the grassroots and direct personal engagement.
Yeah. All those things sound like moving from top down to bottom up.
Yeah, man. That's what's up.
Yeah.
And some people aren't going to like it because, there are many mansions in the Virginia, Maryland area that are made based on somebody charging Democrats exorbitant rates for consulting services for television ads. Some people are not going to like the change. But see, here's the thing: we do to a certain extent have a tail wagging the dog. The consultant industry, I think. Now, look, there's some great consultants, and I want to honor them. But there is another group that's like, look, we might lose all the time, and they have lost all the time, and yet they come back all the time with a big price. They got people like me, politicians, raising money to give it to them, so we're supposed to win, but we never do. So at some point we got to ask, what kind of product have we been getting?
Right.
I think that we've got to empower people at the grassroots level. I wouldn't mind working with somebody who had a great revolutionary field program that could put me in touch with neighbors on a regular basis so we can build relationship, build community, true trust. What is it that Americans really want? You want to be able to know that if you're in the Minnesota winter and your car gets stuck, somebody's going to help push you out of it.
Yeah.
And if that same person says, well, why don't you vote? Well, that's easy because I trust that guy. I know that guy. I like that guy. He's helped me. That's what we need.
Yeah. Amen. Congressman Keith Ellison, representing the 5th District of Minnesota, Deputy Chair of the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, ellison.house.gov, democrats.org. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us today.
Can I say one quick thing? You want to know more about Resistance Summer? 43367, text resist.
Okay, 43367, text resist. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, sir.
And welcome back, Jim in Los Angeles. Hey, Jim, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's on your mind?
Oh, Professor Hartman, the smartest man in all media. I got right on. I didn't get a chance to write 2 pages. But anyhow, I would wonder if Representative Ben Ray Lujan, who's the head of the DCCC, could call for a recount. Not necessarily to change the vote.
You're talking in the Georgia election?
Pardon?
You're talking in the Georgia 6th?
In the Georgia 6th and also South Carolina. Just call for a recount, whatever it costs, pay for it to see how the vote is counted. Tom, how are we going to win if we can't see how the vote is counted? There are legal, liable vote counters. They should be held liable. There were 2 put in jail in Pennsylvania. And
Poll observers were put in jail in Pennsylvania, Jim?
Pardon?
Poll watchers were put in jail in Pennsylvania?
Yes, poll counters, yes, put in jail in Pennsylvania. 14 years. Sentenced to 14 years for miscounting. Of course, Karl Rove is not in jail, who stole the election. And Tom, I love democracy. I love you. I love your program. You have, however, 4 or 5 million people that live and love listening to you. And I see no hope if we don't start counting the vote. How do you count it in Georgia, Tom?
You pull the memory cards out of the machines, you put them in a bag, you drive them down to a place where there's a central tabulator, and they stick them into the machine one at a time and empty their contents. And in the past, in Georgia elections, we know for a fact that Democratic-leaning districts have had machines that mysteriously produced memory cards that had no votes recorded on them, or in the 2004 election, I think it was, maybe it was 2002, there was something like 30 cards that went missing just altogether, with presumably thousands and thousands of votes on each card. And frankly, I think that those missing cards coming out of heavily Democratic voting areas, principally places where people of color live, was influential in flipping the state.
Agreed. And Tom, you're one of the few people I consider more intelligent than me. My big sister has 3 doctorates, but if we can't get to legally liable vote counters held responsible, how can we maintain democracy in America? They have stolen our state, Tom. Michigan is now a Republican bastion that kills people. Literally kills people. And how do we change that, Tom?
Well, we just have to speak to as many people as possible, as consistently and as frequently as possible, spread the word, wake people up. Jim, it's pretty straightforward. It's where the rubber meets the road, as the old cliche goes. And you do that on Facebook, you do that on Twitter, you do that by talking to your neighbors, you do that on Instagram, you do it wherever, however, whenever you can. Jim, thank you for the call.
Hi, I'm Valerie with Free Speech TV. We're proud to provide you with independent, unfiltered news and documentaries. And as our valued viewer, you can help us continue bringing Free Speech TV well into the future. Join our Pearly Gate Rebels, our planned giving program. Your gift of any size will help ensure democracy endures through an informed citizenry. You can donate property, money, or assets. It's easy. My spouse and I are proud Pearly Gate Rebels. We're doing our part to ensure that Free Speech TV will be here to deliver thought-provoking news and information well into the future. Join us. Call 877-378-8669 or email me at valerie@freespeech.org. Rebel against media owned by billionaires and become one of our pearly gate rebels today.
I'm Nina Turner, and you're watching Free Speech TV.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you and Victor in Fairfax, Virginia, listening on Sirius XM. Hey, Victor, what's up?
Hello.
Hey, Victor. Take me off speakerphone, please.
I want to ask this, that as far as the Koch brothers and people like them and climate change, now the Koch brothers have children and grandchildren, and from what I'm reading, I mean, the consequences of global warming are going to be pretty disastrous. I mean, what is their story? Do they just not believe that, or do they feel they can escape to another planet or something?
I don't know. And I wouldn't try to read, their minds or hearts. I just don't. What I do know is that the Koch network has, and the Koch brothers and presumably Koch Industries, whether directly or indirectly through the money it pays the Koch brothers, has been funding climate change denial for years. And, probably for decades, and it is not a good thing. It's had a very deleterious effect on this country, and, potentially could be a catastrophe for the world.
Yes. Well, I was hoping that you were the person that would come up with some sort of a theory for that, but I guess not. Okay.
Well, I have some theories, but I'd rather not share them. I just don't think it's appropriate to guess another person's motivations. It's better to just look at their behavior. And
just one last thing on that. Yeah. Did you see the movie Wall-E?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. It's an animation thing where the fate of the Earth is that the Earth is uninhabitable. The people that are left are living in a satellite that's like a cruise ship that circles the Earth, where they spend their days eating a lot.
Huh.
So that's my kind of sarcastic hypothesis for that. But that's really bizarre. Okay, that's too bad that you don't have an answer for that. But I could understand that. It's a hard question.
Well, and they're real people, and you don't, it's just like, when I have conservatives on and I debate them, I don't question their motives. I question their logic. It's just one of the core concepts that we started this show with, and in part because there are right-wing radio hosts who just go out of their way to trash people on a personal basis, these ad hominem attacks, at-the-person attacks, kill the messenger rather than the message. And, Louise and I, back in 2003, when we were putting the show together, observed that and said, that's something we definitely don't want to ever do. We don't want to be in the business of trashing people reputationally, trashing them personally, questioning their motives, calling them names. That's the worst of the hard right. And I'm not going to go there, but I have no problem at all calling out the millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that these people are spending to influence the public debate in a way that is not good for life on Earth. Victor, thank you for the call, and thanks for listening to Sirius XM. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Coming up on 28 minutes past the hour, back with more of the news of the day, your calls, and my thoughts on all of the above. We're not making it. We need your help. This is the last day of this week of the fund drive. I hope we don't have to come back next week. We may have to if we don't hit our goals for the week on this day. So please call now, 877-378-8669. This network depends on you. And I keep saying this over and over and over again, but it's so true. Free Speech TV is this extraordinary jewel in the muck of the media landscape of capitalist America. I don't know how to say it beyond that. It's a really important thing. And
And it's here because you have been here supporting Free Speech TV. And for that, I'm very grateful. And I know all the people at Free Speech TV are really grateful. But we need to keep this thing going. And yeah, it's the summer. Gifts, donations are always down in the summer. And it's been a pretty crazy political year. We've got, you know, the Orange Cittadini running the country and et cetera. But we still have to do the basic business of paying the connection fee bills and paying the electric bills and making payroll and just the stuff, just the normal stuff. There's no CEOs getting 6, 7, 8-figure salaries here. There's no stockholders taking dividends so that they can enjoy a top tax rate of 23.8% instead of, you know, the 39% that everybody else has to pay. There's no billionaire oligarchs like Rupert Murdoch, you know, behind the network or you know, demanding fealty or, you know, whatever. There's no big corporate overlord like Comcast or Time Warner saying, you may not speak about net neutrality. You may not speak about the merger of Time Warner and AT&T. You may not do a show about the Sherman Antitrust Act. There's none of that, right? And I know people in other networks, they live with that. And I thank God I don't have to. I mean, this Free Speech TV for me is liberating. I can speak about anything. And I do, as you well know. And, you know, the same is true of all the other talent on this network. And we all do it in our own way. I mean, you know, Amy is thoughtful and serious, and Stephanie is irreverent and funny, and I'm whatever I am. And you know, you know, all the other great programming. And but I don't think any of it, frankly, could exist on commercial television. Because the things that I say, the things that Amy Goodman says, the things that, you know, are things that reveal corporate malfeasance, that reveal the perfidy of the conservative billionaire class, particularly the petro-billionaires who are willing to lie to us in order to make more money, destroying our planet. I mean, isn't that incredible? You've got this whole Koch network. They raised $900 million, almost $1 billion for the last election, and maybe even more. I mean, nobody knows. So much of this money is invisible. They fund the great report in Politico about a year and a half ago about how these guys, they throw a few $1 million a year, $5 or $6 million a year at Limbaugh, $3 or $4 million a year at Hannity. I mean, it's insane the amount of money that's floating around in the right-wing sphere. And I mean, it's insane how you know, just that this is the media landscape in the United States, but it's the reality. So with a $60 donation, Free Speech TV, water bottle, and pocket constitution, with a $120 contribution, What Would Jefferson Do book, and a free speech water bottle and a pocket constitution, with a $240 gift, Rebooting the American Dream, the book What Would Jefferson Do, the water bottle, and the Constitution, with a $360 donation, which could be $30 a month for a year, the Legacy of Secrecy book, Rebooting the American Dream book, the Free Speech TV water bottle, and the pocket constitution. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Washington, D.C., and I'll take you to lunch. That said, I mean, you know about those premiums. That said, we really need to hit these goals, and we need to do it. Please help us do it today, because if we can't, Monday, instead of running a brand new book report, we'll be here pitching for money again. And it's not that I don't like doing that. I mean, it's the most fun thing in the world, but I don't mind doing my part for Free Speech TV, putting in this effort. I hope you can do yours. Please call now, 877-378-8669. This network is something worth keeping. It's something worth, I mean, at this point, what we're talking about is keeping it. It's worth building and strengthening too. Thanks so much. Call us, 877-378-8669.
Hey, want to hear that clip again? Subscribe to the Thom Hartmann Program on YouTube to see all your favorite show highlights.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. You know, Congressman Keith Ellison, who is the co-chair or the assistant chair or whatever. What is his title? Deputy chair of the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, the number 2 guy in the DNC. What a brilliant change. You know, Tom Perez and Keith Ellison instead of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Well, yeah, whatever. I'm very optimistic about the future of the Democratic Party. And he talked about FDR, that we're the party of FDR. So in the spirit of that, I would like to, I know my lines are slammed here, but before I pick up your phone calls, I would like to play just a couple minutes of FDR from his For Freedom speech. This was fairly late in his administration. I'm sorry I don't have the exact date that he gave this speech, but this probably would have been, thank you. Oh, really? January 6, 1941. So this was not quite as late as I thought it was. Cool. Okay. Thank you, Troy. Here is FDR.
Certainly, this is no time for any of us to stop thinking about the social and economic problems which are the root cause of the social revolution, which is today a supreme factor in the world. For there is nothing mysterious about the foundations of a healthy and strong democracy. The basic things expected by our people of their political and economic systems are simple. They are equality of opportunity for youth and for others, jobs for those who can work, security for those who need it, the ending of special privilege for the few, the preservation of civil liberties for all, the enjoyment of the fruits of scientific progress in a wider and constantly rising standard of living.
Yeah, now isn't that incredible? I mean, you know, the Republicans are against scientific progress, right? I mean, they're literally anti-science. They want to keep the privileges of the few. They're trying to keep down the rights of the many, right, with voter suppression and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's like we've stepped into bizarro world. It's like an alternative universe as a consequence of, you know, the Republican, you know, billionaire-fed machine. Meanwhile, speaking of bizarro worlds or alternate universes, you ever heard of quantum entanglement? Quantum entanglement, quantum means very, very small, right? It's like the smallest particles, the quantum mechanics, quantum physics. This is the science of the very small, by and large. And when you take an individual particle, you know, an electron or a photon, a particle of light, an individual particle, and you split it in half, the two halves go spinning off. And if you split it in a way that there's a particular spin, you know, that's spinning to the right at 20 loops a second or something, you can actually attach a frequency to it, you know, 20 spins per second or whatever. So you cut that particle in half, and those two pieces go spinning off in different directions. Or they start spinning, and if you can contain them with like a magnetic field, and then shoot them out. What happens is when those two particles, which started out as one, which are quantum entangled, when those two particles get to be millions of miles apart or thousands of miles apart, it doesn't matter. If you modify one of them, the other one instantly changes. In other words, you grab one of those particles and you tweak it a little bit to the right, and the other particle suddenly tweaks to the right. Faster than the speed of light. It's instantaneous. This is faster than the speed of light. And the Chinese have created a satellite to use quantum entangled particles for secure communication. This is a way that we could be speaking to, and it's possible to people on other planets. And it's possible that people on other planets are trying to speak to us right now, sending us entangled particles that we just haven't yet developed the radio, TV technology to find. But the scientists in China have done this just months into its mission. This from Nature News, this by David Castellavecchi.
Just months into its mission, the first quantum communications satellite has achieved one of its most ambitious goals. Researchers report in Science that by beaming photons between the satellite and 2 distant ground stations, they've shown that particles can remain in a linked quantum state at a record-breaking distance of more than 1,200 kilometers. That phenomenon, known as quantum entanglement, could be used as the basis of a future secure communications network. The feat is the first result reported from China's Quantum Experiments at Space Scale mission, QUESS, also known as MICIUS, M-I-C-I-U-S, after an ancient Chinese philosopher. This was launched in August. The craft is designed to demonstrate principles underlying quantum communication. The team is likely to launch more quantum-enabled satellites to start building a network. And nobody else can read your communications because they're quantum entangled. And which also raises the question, is it possible that at some level, in some place, that the entire universe, grew out of a singularity, out of a single particle, that everything is entangled, that we literally really are all one? I think it's possible. I think it's a really cool concept. But anyhow, I wanted to share that with you. Okay, let's pick up your phone calls. Karen in Olympia, Washington. Hey, Karen, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. I've been a fan since day one.
Thank you.
Anyway, and I've been calling it the Freedom from Healthcare Act, and I think it's actually the new Holocaust. Think of it that way. Anyway,
we're talking 10 or 20 million people a year dying in the United States as a result of this rollback.
I know, it's horrible.
Or excuse me, 10 or 20,000.
You from time to time read a long list of Democratic accomplishments. I wish you would do that more often, and I really wish we could get that to Tom Perez. I think we need to be talking about what we do.
Yeah.
So.
Well, a lot of it is what we did, but yeah, I agree.
Well, but it's what we continue to do.
Okay, I'll go looking for that, Karen, and I'll devise a rant for it next week. Okay.
I love that piece. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate the call. Thank you. Carol in Idaho Falls, Idaho. Hey, Carol, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. I have a kind of a specific question for you. I tried to call when you had that fellow from Social Security on, but I couldn't make it through. And I have a question on disability insurance. Does that run through Medicaid?
No, I believe the Social Security Disability Insurance is its own standalone program, SSDI, and it doesn't have anything to do with Medicaid. Although I believe that it's possible I know Medicare can bill Social Security for premiums. I don't know if Medicaid has a similar relationship with Social Security. I've never used either program.
Do you know how it's paid, how it's funded?
I beg your pardon?
Do you know how Medicaid is funded then?
Medicaid is funded out of the general fund. It's funded with tax dollars. It doesn't have a separate funding stream, to the best of my knowledge. I may be wrong on this, but I don't think I am. Medicare is funded through FICA, and Social Security is funded through FICA. And Medicare is also funded by people going on Medicare and making payments. I'm on Medicare right now, and I pay a couple $100 every month for my Medicare. The Medicaid, I'm pretty sure, is just funded by, in part, the states and in part the federal government. And
I have a couple of friends. In fact, one of them is my son, and he's been trying to get disability insurance for almost 3 years.
Yeah, the typical time to get on Social Security disability is 2 years. It's a tortuous process. You have to really prove that you're disabled.
Actually, sometimes I think he's getting stonewalled. I have no reason to believe why they wouldn't grant it to him. But anyway, I just was trying to disentangle how that's funded.
Yeah.
The disability insurance.
Social Security disability is funded out of the Social Security. It's out of the Social Security revenues, and every certain number of years, and I'm not sure if it's 5 or 10, but every couple of years, they recalculate Social Security. How they allocate the funds to make sure that the disability fund is okay and the retirement fund is okay, because there's these two different functions for Social Security. And the Republicans with this legislation are seeking to, not this bill, but another bill that they put forward a little while ago, seeking to cut back. It's the Paul Ryan budget, actually, the Trump budget, massively cuts Social Security disability. But Trump promised he wouldn't cut Social Security, and now he's saying, well, disability isn't really Social Security. I was talking about retirement. And So, but, you know, the Republicans will cut anything they can get near if it means more tax cuts for the billionaires who pay for their campaigns. Carol, I'm sorry I don't have the exact answer for you, but there are also, you know, there's an attorney practice, a legal practice of helping people get Social Security disability that has popped up all around the country because it is so difficult. It's such a challenge. I don't know if you have the resources or if your son has the resources to hire a lawyer to do that, but I believe that there are some law firms that do that kind of thing. Carol, thanks so much for the call, and thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. We'll be right back. Coming up on 15 minutes before the hour, thereabouts, 16 minutes before the hour. We'll be right back with more. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with more of your calls and the latest of the news of the day right after this. And welcome back. Elizabeth in Millsboro, Delaware. Hey, Elizabeth, what's on your mind today?
Hey, good morning, Tom. Thanks for taking the call. My thing is that I've been a lifelong Democrat. I'm 75, and I do believe Nancy Pelosi has got to go. We have enough corporate Democrats in this Congress. They might as well put an R after the name instead of a D, and they're not working for us. Let's just talk about Jay Johnson's commentary in the hearing the other day when he was talking about how the Russians went into, was it 28 state board of elections. While the Democrats are agreeing that, well, it didn't affect any vote, what it did do was prevent people from voting because they were thrown off the rolls. That's what the Russians did.
Not by the Russians. That was by the Republicans. I mean, I'm not defending the Russians. They shouldn't be poking into our voting systems. Nobody should. We shouldn't have voting systems that are pokeable. But
remember 2004.
But what does Nancy Pelosi have to do with this, Elizabeth?
Black box voting.
Oh yeah, Bev Harris. She was on this show regularly.
Yeah, what was it? The Howard Dean.
Yeah.
Showed in 10 seconds how you could flip a vote.
Yeah, it was 90 seconds, but yeah, I've got the clip. I play it on the show about once a year now.
Well, the thing
that was on the Tina Brown show on whatever the network was, CNBC, I guess it was.
So we've got all these voting machines run by these corporations. How can we ever believe that our vote is going to be counted properly if we don't get a voting system? I don't care if it's paper. We need a backup to our vote.
Yeah.
And I'm very concerned because in the John Ossoff election, Nancy Pelosi's picture was up on those Republican ads 90% of the time.
Yeah.
She is a red herring for Republicans.
Well, no, Elizabeth, what's going to happen, and I thought I had printed this, but I apparently didn't. First of all, next week, Congressman Mark Pocan is dropping legislation in the House of Representatives to fight interstate crosscheck, to fight the suppression of the vote by throwing people off the voter rolls, number one. And that's a big deal. Oh, here it is right here. Thank you, Troy. End interstate crosscheck, support the Voter Roll Integrity Act. And then this is, it's being introduced next week. And, Congressman Pocan will be on next Wednesday. I'm sure we'll talk about it. But it's a bill that would strengthen voter protections by ensuring that states can no longer purge voter rolls without the knowledge or consent of active, still eligible voters. And that's a really important thing. But I don't see, again, what this has to do with Nancy Pelosi, Elizabeth. Nancy Pelosi is an incredibly competent legislator. She got some brilliant legislation through the House in 2009 and 2010. Most of it was filibustered by Republicans in the Senate, and most of it was very progressive stuff.
I understand that, but the point is they took what she said about the health care bill, ACA, out of context. She did not say you have to get the copy of the bill out, and then read it. No, they cut off that sentence. Then they didn't complete her sentence.
No, I understand that, but see, they're going to do that to whoever is the Democratic leader. The Republicans lie. It's the only way they can successfully win elections. I mean, even their media lies. I was watching Tucker Carlson on Fox last night, and I was, it's like you can just count the lies, and particularly when what's his name, I want to say Klinghoffer. That's not his name. The German name. Anyway, yeah. Krauthammer. That's right. Charles Krauthammer was on this. It's just insane. Elizabeth, thank you for the call. We'll have to agree to disagree on this one. We'll be back. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And in just a minute, we will have our Friday thank yous for you. But first, let's pick up a call from Jeff in Bellingham, Washington. Hey, Jeff, what's on your mind?
Hey, how's it going? I just wanted to say that what you were talking about the small particles, that basically in Buddhism, that they, for thousands of years, viewed this as a singular experience.
Mm-hmm. A singularity experience.
Excuse me?
You mean like in a singularity, like everything is connected, everything is one.
Everything's connected. They don't see anything in this world as being what we would call real, because things come together and fall apart. So nothing lasts in this causation.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And one of the great highlights of my life was spending a week with the Dalai Lama in Dharamsala, McLeod Ganj, ultimately his home. And he said, "Do you want to take refuge?" And I said, "Sure." And he put this white thing around me, and we did this little ritual. And so I guess I'm a Buddhist. It's kind of pretentious. I'm not, but I love Buddhism. I think it's a marvelous religion. Jeff, thank you for the call. And to our Friday thank yous, thanks so much to our show director, Louise Hartman, to my executive producer, Sean Taylor, to our video director, Chris Mendelis, to our radio and TV producer, Troy Miller, to our phone screener, Nate Atwell, an associate producer, to our writer-researcher, Nate Sweet, to our webmasters, Nigel Peacock and Jamie Holly, our business manager, Ron Hartenbaum, everyone at the various groups and companies that syndicate this program, Digital Media, Pacifica Radio, Sirius XM Satellite Radio, Cable Radio Network, Free Speech TV, on Dish Network, DirecTV, and all the cable providers who carry our show, including Manhattan Neighborhood Network, all the others around the country, all the great folks at Free Speech TV, and RTTV who work on the big picture, to the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn, to Netroots Radio, to our newsletter editor, Sue Nethercutt, to the folks in our chat room, to Ellen Ratner, Victoria Jones, Bob Ney, and everyone at Talk Media News, to Jay Goodman-Tamboli for tech support, to our affiliates, our sponsors, and to you for supporting our program. Thank you so much. So Bob in Kalispell, Montana. Hey, what a great name for a town. Hey, Bob, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom, I'm one of these new precinct committee chairmen out here.
Hey, good on you, Bob.
I just want to report on our last meeting. It's kind of almost like an AARP meeting. We really need to have some of you younger kids get involved. But to Keith Ellison's point, I look around me here in Kalispell. We've got an election coming up, and we've got about 20 Republicans running unopposed.
Whoa.
That's just sad to me. Just sad. I'm going to do my part and fill one of those slots. I haven't made up my mind which one yet, but I just cannot stand to see empty seats stand there. So I'm hoping some more people are going to reach out. But with quantum entanglements, I mean, it's no wonder the kids don't want to pay attention to politics, I guess.
Well, maybe we can use that quantum entanglement. This is also kind of the notion of the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, or the gestalt, the sense of how things are that echoes through everybody. They're all kind of grounded in this idea of quantum entanglement. So maybe we just need to put out the vibe to young people to start running for office as Democrats and get, a half a dozen or 20 of them in Kalispell, Montana going. Bob, good on you for being a precinct committee person.
I've been trying to remind him about the Republican robber barons. We use this term oligarch. I think that's too collegey, too European. They're robber barons. Montanans remember what the robber barons did to us.
You're right. Robber barons are economic royalists. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. Bob, thanks for the call. Well said. Well said. Kate in Campeche, California. Am I saying that right, Kate?
Campeche. We're in Mendocino up here in the north. Hey, Tom.
Hey, what's up?
So, yeah, they are robber barons. I agree. I think language is important, and I've recently converted my thinking. Nancy Pelosi is great, and we let them put this chaos energy into the Democratic Party by picking on Nancy Pelosi. And all this other negativity. They're spin doctors, and they've got us all worked up about the wrong things.
I agree.
We waste our energy.
I agree.
It's not the individuals, it's the system. We have to remember that.
Yep.
So what I want to say is about the Ossoff election, I think we did a great job. I think we came closer than they thought we'd come.
Yep.
They poured all that money in. You know why? Because they were afraid he would win.
Yep.
And we need to understand that we have more power than we think we have.
I agree. We, you know, in all four of these elections that Democrats have lost by a whisker in the last few months, in every case, the preceding Republican had won by 15 to 20 points, and now they're winning by 1 or 2 or 3 points.
Exactly. And the wheels
that's a big deal.
of this system are very, very rusty and turn very slowly. And I know a lot of people are frustrated by that. So I would encourage them to go out on the local level, like the caller before me, and affect change in your local town. But what I'd like to say to people is don't pick on Nancy Pelosi. Don't focus on Donald Trump. That's what they want us to do. Put your energy into changing the system. And I wish MSNBC would put a better spin on this. You know, I wish that all the pundits would say, hey, Democrats, you did a great job.
Well, you need to talk to them about that. But, you know, here we're totally with you, Kate. Kate, I got to move along. It's almost the end of the show, but thank you. Mo in Chicago, listen to WCPT. Hey, Mo, we got a minute and a half. What's up?
Well, I'm blessed to have you, and I'm blessed to have Keith Ellison. I want to address a suggestion to him and for all the people who are going to be lobbying during the next week against this death bill. My suggestion is that at least each local group can formulate a demand that the congressman, assuming you're talking to a Republican, submit an amendment to the bill, even if he's a strong supporter of the bill, demand that he submit an amendment exempting children to the age of 12 and all honorably discharged veterans, not all of whom get free medical care from the VA, exempting them from the provisions of this draconian bill. And if they fail to introduce that amendment, that of course the people will vote against it, and maybe they were willing to promise to vote for a Republican if he will introduce it.
Wow, couldn't you see that playing out on the floor of the Senate, where Elizabeth Warren or somebody like her, Bernie Sanders, something like that, says to the Republicans, "Will you at least cover children under 16?" And Rand Paul says, "No way, won't do it." Well, how about 12? Will you do 12? No, won't do it. We're not going to cover them either. How about 8-year-olds? How about children under 8? No, we're not going to do that. I mean, it would make great political theater, Mo. That is brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Mo, I got to run, but thank you for the call. And thanks so much for being with us today. Thank you all for, whether you called, whether you, tweeted or Facebooked or chat roomed or YouTubed or whatever it may be, or just listened or watched. Thank you so much for being with us today and this week. And, kudos to the fellow, I'm sorry I'm forgetting his name now, but the fellow from Montana who is now a precinct committee person. And, we all, but Bob, yeah, we all need to be doing that. Get out there, get active, tag, you're it. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242.
Or visit tomsbeets.com.